Chapter 37:25. The emperor was urging the crown prince to find a wife. The crown prince was annoyed. When he was young, his father had told him, "Son, cultivate hard. Strength is the foundation. Don't think about romance all day." He had been cultivating hard, but now he was being asked to find a crown princess. There was no excess in life. He really didn't know what kind of crown princess he should find. A crown princess didn't exist in his life plan for the time being. The crown prince said in despair, "Father, just choose a wife for me." If he had the time, he might as well spend it on cultivation. Besides, if he got married, the two of them would have to spend more time together. It would be a waste of time. He cultivated both magic and chi, so he needed even more time. The emperor said, "Choose whichever one you like." The crown prince, The crown prince pointed at the name list. "Then this one, the one from the earl's residence. It's not good, right?" The emperor said, "I really like this girl from the earl's residence. She's been chosen twice." The crown prince shook his head. "No, I'm not. Don't talk nonsense. I only know her. Rather than find someone I don't know, I'd rather find someone I know." The emperor said, "Since you like her, it's not impossible. It's just that the earl's status is too low. You have to find a daughter from a marquis." The crown prince waved his hand. "Forget it, there's no need. Let's wait for a while." "What's there to wait for? Choose this one." The crown prince felt a chill. "Father, are you serious?" The emperor said, "Of course. Choose this one." The crown prince shrugged. "Father, this girl has some grudges with me. She won't agree." He didn't know why the emperor was in such a hurry. The emperor asked, "Are you sure?" The crown prince asked, "Can I change?" The emperor said, "Sure. Who do you want?" The crown prince said, "Up to you." At the dinner table, the earl looked at his daughter and sighed. The earl said, "You will be the crown princess." Avril was stunned. "What?" Mia was also stunned. "Cousin is going to be the crown princess?" The earl said, "The emperor told me his intentions, but he didn't say it explicitly." "Do you have such feelings for the crown prince?" Avril, not at all." Mia put down her cutlery and said sadly, "Uncle, cousin, I'm full. I'm going back to my room." Avril's heart skipped a beat when she saw Mia's expression. Could it be that her cousin would steal her cousin's lover and become the crown prince's consort by hook or by crook? Avril didn't know why, but as long as it had something to do with Mia, she was like a box for rumors. All kinds of rumors would automatically find their way to her. It was so annoying. She was the one who had bullied Mia previously. Was she going to snatch her lover away from her now? Damn, tsk. He didn't know why. The count asked his daughter, "Do you want to be the crown princess? Do you want to?" "If you do, I will reply to the emperor." Avril shook her head. "I don't want to be the crown princess. Mia likes the crown prince." "Are you quitting because Mia likes the crown prince, or because you don't?" the count asked. Avril, "Firstly, it's because of Mia. I'm the unlucky one when I'm involved with Mia. Secondly, I don't like the crown prince. Previously, when I was framed in school, he also added fuel to the fire. Thirdly, I want to cultivate." There was nothing more frightening than strength. Avril felt the beauty of strength. Now, no one in school dared to say that she bullied Mia. She wasn't afraid of becoming the crown princess, but she didn't want to be involved with the crown prince. Previously, her reputation was in shambles and she was in such a sorry state. The count was silent for a moment. "It's probably because Mia is weak. You said that Mia likes the crown prince." Avril said, "Father, didn't you see her expression just now?" The count frowned. "If you're sure, then I will reply to His Majesty. Don't regret it when the time comes." Avril scoffed. What was there to regret? After suffering so much pain from the rumors, she didn't want to be involved in the matter between Mia and the crown prince. With Mia's sad look, if she walked around the school, she would definitely be called a scheming bitch the next day. Meddling, third-party, shameless. If she had the time to tear her crotch, Avril would rather cultivate and stabilize her state of mind. Otherwise, she would return to how she was before. It wasn't easy to start over. Avril said, "Does Mia have any relatives in her father's family?" No grandparents? It didn't make sense. Even if they were to raise her, it wouldn't be the turn of a sister from her mother's family. That was a bit too distant. Moreover, her grandparents were closer to Mia than they were. Avril roughly understood that as long as they stayed together, she would probably be the one to be compared and crushed into the mud. The only way was to stay away from her. Someone else was probably going to be unlucky. The Count said, "I didn't notice that." At that time, the guard came with Mia covered in blood and told her that her parents were dead. The Count's wife's heart was filled with pain and was filled with tender love for Mia. The Count also realized that Mia and his daughter seemed to be natural enemies. Mia didn't have to do anything. His daughter was just a filth. The kind of filth that couldn't be washed away. Should he just chase her away? When the time came, the Count's residence would be the big bad guy. The Count said, "I'll think of a way." Avril nodded. Fortunately, her father was on her side this time. Actually, her father had always been on her side. Unfortunately, there was a problem with her mentality. He told her not to argue with Mia, but she felt wronged. Why couldn't she scratch her? Why did she have to be tolerant? Just because she was weak, helpless, and pitiful. Don't be calculative with her. Why can't you be calculative? Now, Avril really didn't want to argue with her. She just wanted to not have anything to do with her. She didn't know what magic Mia had. Perhaps she could break it by increasing her strength. The stronger, the better. The Count said, "Since Mia likes the Crown Prince, let's fulfill their wish?" Avril looked at her father faintly. Mia didn't say that she likes the Crown Prince. You've pointed it out. If the Crown Prince rejects and Mia is sad, it'll be your fault. Then you'll be the bad guy. The Count was speechless. This was really difficult to deal with. Avril said, "Father, please help me reject him. I don't want to be the Crown Princess." To be honest, her heart was filled with resentment toward the Crown Prince. How could they be together? There was also Wakel and that group of rich and powerful people. To be honest, it was a good idea to challenge them one by one. The Count was very irritated. He had a big family, but he was still controlled by a girl. Chapter 3726. Neither party had thought of sending Mia to the Earl's residence. Why should they send her to the Earl's residence? But the Earl was still afraid. When she got married, the Earl's residence would have to worry about all sorts of things. In the end, she was just a niece. She would have to be busy with all sorts of things. What he was most afraid of was that something would happen midway and turn a good thing into a bad thing. Now the Earl knew that one couldn't be a good person rashly. Otherwise, one would be looking for trouble. It was best for Mia to stay far away from the Earl's residence. He didn't expect Mia to remember their good deeds. It was fine as long as she didn't miss them. It wasn't that the Earl was afraid. The power of a grand magus was there for all to see. But when he encountered something, it was like hitting cotton. Things were often like a wild dog that had broken out of its anus. The two parties couldn't come to an agreement and let Mia decide whose house she should stay in. Both parties tried their best to please Mia. She didn't know who to choose. So Mia went to ask her fiancé, the Crown Prince. They were already engaged and could be close. The Crown Prince was cultivating and was interrupted. He was told that his fiancé was looking for him. Fiancé? The Crown Prince was confused for a moment. What fiancé? Then he thought of Mia. Yes, Mia was his fiancée. When he went out, he saw Mia's red face. She was very cute. The Crown Prince sighed. The frustration from being interrupted dissipated a little. He asked, "Why are you looking for me?" Mia looked at the Crown Prince and told him about the recent events. Then she looked at the Crown Prince, hoping that he would give her an idea. The main thing was that Mia didn't want both sides to quarrel. Now that both sides saw each other, their faces darkened. If this continued, the peace-loving Mia would be very distressed. The Crown Prince was stunned. Just this. She called him out for this matter. You can go to whichever house you want. This was something that didn't need to be thought about. She was already the Crown Princess. She could do as she wished. She would suffer less if she stayed here. It would be more convenient for her to get married. He didn't know what to think about. If it really didn't work, he would let Mia's father buy a house here. It would be the same when she got married from that house. What was this big deal? The crown prince was very unhappy. Why was he disturbed by such a trivial matter? Mia could tell that the crown prince was unhappy and asked, "Your Highness, how should I choose?" "Crown prince, as long as you're happy. You can go anywhere, it depends on your mood." Mia lowered her head and looked at her toes. "I'm here to ask you because I don't know which one to choose." "Crown prince? What was the meaning of this? Tell me what you're thinking. Which family do you want to stay in? I'll tell them." "When you make your choice, just tell them that it's my idea." The crown prince finally came back to his senses. This fiancé of his probably meant that it was good for everyone. They didn't know who to choose, but they were also afraid that the loser would be angry and disappointed. In fact, the crown prince had already thought of a way to deal with this matter so that both sides would be happy. However, he did not want to waste time, so he directly used his status as a member of the royal family, and the others could only follow suit. As for whether others were happy or not, it was none of his business. However, with his fiancée's personality, she would be in the hands of others in the future. Usually, this kind of person who wanted to be good for both parties would end up in an awkward situation. After all, she was going to be the mother of a country in the future. She would have to face many noble ladies. With just a few words, she would be able to control Mia. At this moment, the crown prince was unhappy. Firstly, it was because his cultivation was disturbed. Secondly, the crown prince was a little afraid of Mia's personality. In the future, she would come to him for the slightest thing. As someone who cultivated both magic and martial arts, his time was very precious, okay? Mia got the attention of her fiancé and left happily. The crown prince returned to his room and continued to meditate. However, he could not get into the state no matter what. He was extremely frustrated and simply went to the courtyard to lift a huge rock. He lifted until he was drenched in sweat. He was still frustrated. On this side, Mia's matter was settled. She stayed at her maternal grandfather's house. The main thing was that her maternal grandfather's house was the marquis residence. It was more convenient here. When the crown prince found out, he was even more frustrated. He felt that this lass was really annoying. Since she already had a choice in her heart, why did she have to use his name to make a choice? She wanted to be good for everyone. Should he be the bad guy for no reason? The crown prince did not care much about this reputation, but he was still a little unhappy. There was a subtle feeling of being used. This was the most annoying thing. The crown prince was clearly someone who was going to get married, but there was a gloomy look on his face. When Avril saw this, she laughed in her heart. Anyone who went against Mia would be asking for trouble. She did not know what was wrong with the crown prince, but his expression was so ugly. He was someone who was going to marry Mia. Perhaps he could get lucky. After that, Mia looked for the crown prince for some trivial matters. Actually, it was also because Mia wanted to see the crown prince. After they became engaged, the crown prince did not look for Mia. In school, the crown prince did not look for her. This way, Mia could not help but think that the crown prince was really too cold. Since the crown prince did not look for Mia, Mia could only look for him. After a few times, the crown prince was simply about to explode. It was all trivial matters. His patience had already reached the limit. Wasting his time made his mentality collapse. Every time he was disturbed, it took even longer for him to meditate again. The crown prince was afraid that he would explode from anger. He endured it and said to Mia, "In the future, if there is nothing important, don't look for me. I want to cultivate and meditate." Mia was about to cry. They were engaged. Couldn't she look for the crown prince for no reason? Every time Mia looked for the crown prince with a young girl's heart thumping, the crown prince's reaction was simply like being struck by lightning. How could it be like this? Mia looked at the crown prince with tears in her eyes. She questioned the crown prince, "Why did you choose me to be the crown princess if you don't like me? Then you might as well not choose me to be the crown princess. Since you chose me, we are engaged. Is it wrong for me to come and see my fiancé?" That's right. But it wasted the crown prince's time and affected his mentality. Mia was angry and did not want to be the crown princess. The crown prince sighed and entered the palace in the blink of an eye. He told his emperor that he was not suitable for Mia and told him everything that had happened recently. The emperor was speechless. He probably felt that he was really anxious and let his son find a random girl. Now, so many troublesome things had happened. Seeing his son's terrible expression, the emperor expressed that since he did not want this crown princess, so be it. Thus, the prospective crown princess became a countess. Of course, a countess was to make it up to Mia. Moreover, aristocrats had their own territories and large areas of farms and land. Aristocrats lived much better lives than commoners. To view the new chapter of Zue, please go to mobile address. Chapter 3727. The Earl's residence also had a territory. As the Earl was a great magician and a respected magician, his territory was especially big and rich. When Mia received the news, she was completely dumbfounded. She was dumbstruck and didn't even move her eyeballs. Everyone in the Marquis residence was astonished. Wasn't she the crown princess? Why did it become an earl? Although an earl was an aristocrat, he couldn't be compared to the queen. Outsiders didn't know how much pain Mia was in. Hearing the sighs of the people around her, she felt extremely cold as if she had been frozen. That year, she fell into an ice cave and was so cold that she almost lost her life. Mia cried and went to look for the crown prince. The crown prince had also expected that Mia would come and look for him. He waited and didn't go to meditate. He was afraid that he would be interrupted halfway after finally entering meditation. That feeling was very unpleasant. In any case, the crown prince felt as if he had been constipated for a long time. His entire body was a little restless and he was very frustrated. Seeing Mia crying and looking for him, the crown prince wanted to turn and leave. Annoying, annoying, annoying. Faced with Mia's questioning, the crown prince only said that they weren't suitable. In order to make it up to Mia, he made her a countess. A girl without parents suddenly became a countess and even had a territory. She had reached the heavens in a single bound. However, Mia was in pain. Mia insisted, "What exactly is not suitable? What did I do wrong? I'll change." The crown prince said, "Don't come and look for me if there's nothing. Don't disturb my cultivation. I can't accompany you all the time. When I don't call for you, don't come and look for me." "Can you do that?" Mia's face was as pale as a sheet. "Are we still husband and wife?" What Mia couldn't accept was that the crown prince didn't like her. If he liked her, he wouldn't be so cold and stiff. In the crown prince's heart, she wasn't as important as cultivation. If he liked her, he would compromise. The crown prince said, "Leave. Don't make things too ugly." Mia walked away like a zombie. Mia was probably the shortest crown princess to be. Then, all sorts of rumors spread in the school. Some belittled Mia, but more of them felt sorry for her. Mia looked too pitiful. She was thin, weak, and distracted. She was like a pear blossom that had been ravaged by the storm. They said that the crown prince had taken advantage of her and then abandoned her. There were also some people who secretly said that the crown prince was irresponsible. There were all kinds of rumors, and they were all secrets of the royal family. Ordinary people loved to gossip about the rich and powerful. When the crown prince heard these rumors, he was expressionless. What did they mean by him being irresponsible? What the hell? He said that he was a heartless man who had let down Mia, such a good girl. Mia is good, but she's too annoying. The crown prince, who was at the center of the rumors, had a gloomy expression. He didn't expect that he would cut off all ties with Mia. This was also compensation. In this life, Mia wouldn't have to worry about food and drink, and because of the countess, she might even be able to marry into a good family in the future. Even though she was once the future crown princess, this was a world where the strong were respected. There were many powerful magicians who did not care about the country or the emperor. Unless the country had a lot of powerful backing and a lot of powerful magicians. The title of crown princess to be was really nothing much. When Avril heard the news, she rolled around on the bed happily and hammered the bed with laughter. It was really karma. Let the crown prince have a taste of what it felt like to be casually mocked. In other people's mouths, he was really guilty and a bad person. Avril looked at the crown prince's ugly face every day. When she returned home, she could eat half an extra buckwheat bread. Since Mia was no longer the crown princess, Mia's father had returned to the family territory, and the Marquis residence wanted to send Mia back to the Earl's residence. The Earl's mouth twitched. What was the meaning of this? Oh, the Earl's residence deserved to raise this child. When the child was glorious, they took her away. Now that there was a problem with the child, they wanted to send her back. This table manners were too ugly. What the hell was this? Did they think that the Earl's residence was easy to bully? The Earl directly said with a compassionate expression, "Now that the child is sad, you directly sent her to my house. Isn't it obvious that you despise her? You were good to her before because she was the crown princess. Now that she's not the crown princess, you want to chase her away. This child must be very sad. Moreover, the Marquis residence doesn't lack food. Moreover, the child is an Earl now." The Earl refused to send Mia back to the Earl's residence, but his words were for Mia's good and to take care of her feelings. In any case, she couldn't return to the Earl's residence. She couldn't disturb the family's cultivation. Their family of 3 were all magicians and needed to meditate to absorb magic elements. Who had the time to deal with this nonsense every day? The people from the Marquis residence. Forget it, let her stay. Indeed, they were going to pick Mia up with great fanfare, but sending her back would take some time. So, the crown prince was playing around. When Avril heard that her father refused to let Mia come back, she gave him a big smile. She couldn't get close to Mia. The best way was to stay away from her. If she argued with her, she would become more and more unlucky in the end, and things would get out of hand. She would also become more and more resentful. The more resentful she was, the more she wanted to get back at her. The more she wanted to get back at her, the more unlucky she would become in the end. The most depressing thing about her was that she didn't do anything to hurt you, but she would make you sink deeper into the mud. As long as you stayed away from Mia, the world was still very beautiful. Avril felt that if these rumors were blown out of proportion, Mia might even lose her position as the Earl. Thunder and rain were the grace of the monarch. The crown prince couldn't let people keep talking about him like this. It was only because she wasn't strong enough in the past that people pointed at her. In the face of absolute power, no one dared to offend the entire world and continue to blabber. Avril challenged many people in the name of promoting improvement. "Avril, I don't like fighting." "So good." Ning Shu talked to Fatian for a while, then asked Dan Qing to send her to do a mission. Dan Qing said, "A large area of the plane is collapsing. All the mission takers who can deal with star stones and plane fragments have to go deal with the collapse." Ning Shu, do the mission. There were so many people who could deal with star stones and plane fragments. She'd better do the mission first. Dan Qing, everyone is going. It's more serious this time. It's a big accident with countless fragments. Everyone is going. You're probably the only one who still wants to do the mission. Ning Shu sighed. She wasn't surprised at all. This was something that would happen sooner or later. Holding Fatian's hand, she said, "I'll take you to work." "You're not going to do the mission?" Fatian asked about Ning Shu's work. Ning Shu shook her head. "I have more urgent things to deal with." Fatian said, "You don't have to do the mission. I can help you absorb soul power." Chapter 3728. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Tian felt that if he went to the world of reincarnation and swung his whip, he could absorb a lot of soul energy and transfer it to Ning Shu. There was no need to stay in a plane for so long just for half of the soul energy. When Ning Shu heard Fatian's words, he couldn't help but sweat for the souls in the world of reincarnation. He said, "Don't worry about those souls in the world of reincarnation. I'm not doing this just to get the soul energy, it's also my job, my job." "Oh," Heaven Punisher replied. Ning Shu brought Fatian to the place where the plane had collapsed. The scene was very messy. The air was filled with shards of debris. From afar, those planes looked like a huge cheese with a corner collapsed. It was more like a huge ant nest that had collapsed, and there were many ants trying to save the nest. This was the biggest plane accident that Ning Shu had ever seen. He could actually see the missing corner of the plane with his naked eye. To be able to see the missing corner of billions of planes, it could be seen how many planes had collapsed this time. To be more specific, It was like suddenly losing a finger. Some of those floating fragments streaked across the sky and then rushed into the nearby planes. If such fragments were not dealt with quickly and rushed into other planes, it would cause a huge impact on the plane's environment. A huge meteorite fell from the sky. One could imagine how big of an impact it would have on the environment. It could even change the living environment of a plane. There were too many fragments. Even if all the people who could pick them up came, it was still too late. Ning Shu stretched out countless vines. These vines spread out with Ning Shu as the center and started to pick up the fragments. There were so many fragments. Just seeing the fragments was enough. As for dealing with the star rock, it was probably not that important. Ning Shu moved slowly and stretched out more vines. Fodder also took out a bag and picked up the fragments and put them into the bag. This time, not only did all the big shots move out, even the army was mobilized. This accident could be considered as a serious injury to his bones. Sea of Laws. Ning Shu glanced around and saw Fragrant Wind Guy. Beside him was Mo Ming, who was busy. Uncle Chang and granduncles had all taken action. Dust drifted in the air as everyone busied themselves. Ning Shu didn't even know how many fragments he had picked up. He felt like there were so many fragments that he could never finish picking them up. Even if they hurried, there were still many fragments that rushed into the planes that were still intact. It was likely that the surrounding planes would have some residual effects. Ning Shu was thinking about making props, so he slowly moved to Uncle Zhang's side. Of course, he didn't forget to use his vines to pick up the fragments. Ning Shu greeted his eldest uncle and asked, "What's the reason this time? Why is it so serious?" Eldest uncle said, "There are all kinds of reasons why a plane collapses. I don't know. This time, it was probably because we didn't handle it in time." Ning Shu didn't mind, and he wanted to ask about making items. For example, the bag in their hands had a lot of space inside. Ning Shu couldn't do it, nor did he know the principle behind it. It was probably similar to the meson space in the world of cultivation. Ning Shu wanted to learn these things. However, it wasn't good to ask such questions. Ning Shu decided to buy some materials to learn first. When the organization was destroyed, these things couldn't be exchanged in the system shop. Ning Shu felt that the Sea of Laws could still last for a while, which was enough time for Ning Shu to learn. Didn't His Excellency and the others say that it wouldn't be a problem for the Sea of Laws to last for millions of years? A few million years? Ning Shu didn't even know if she could live for a few million years. How long was a few million years? However, Ning Shu felt that it was impossible for him to live for millions of years. When he approached the Sea of Laws, he couldn't feel any vitality. Uncle Zhang clearly felt that Ning Shu was being nice and wouldn't talk to him normally. He said, "Is the puppet broken again?" Ning Shu had placed the puppet that Uncle Zhang was talking about in Water City. He hadn't cared about it for a long time, and the puppet hadn't given him any news either. If Uncle Zhang hadn't mentioned it, Ning Shu would have forgotten about it. He still said, "No, it's fine." Uncle Zhang said, "Use it slowly." Ning Shu turned his head and moved away from Uncle Zhang. And he appeared in front of Uncle Zhang and said, "Slut, get some more bags." Ning Shu. What kind of name was that? Slut? Was it a nickname? Uncle Zhang was expressionless. He let the people beside him handle it and looked at he gloomily. "If you shout like that again, I'll kill you." And he didn't care about Uncle Zhang's cold face at all and rushed away. Uncle Zhang looked at he's back with murderous intent. Fragrant Wind really liked to court death. Ning Shu said, "Your relationship is really tense." Uncle Zhang chuckled. "He's just jealous of me. He's jealous that I can fuck women, but he can't." Ning Shu, Uncle Zhang, some people pretend to be serious. I like women, and I like to fuck the women I like until the end of time. It's none of his business. Ning Shu, that he suddenly thought of a perverted love for dolls. Could it be that Uncle Zhang and his inflatable doll? Ning Shu held Fodder's hand and moved away from Uncle Zhang. Fodder didn't want to hear such words that were not suitable for children. Could it be that Uncle Zhang was hiding a doll with consciousness? Doing things with the women he liked, which meant that Uncle Zhang actually had a body too. Ning Shu didn't know which people in this organization had bodies and which didn't. Fa Tian had already picked up several bags of shards. Ning Shu saw that he was tired and said, "If you're tired, don't pick them up. Take a rest." Fa Tian was still a child. Fa Tian didn't stop and said, "When we're done, we can do our own things. Every piece we pick up is one less piece." Ning Shu asked, "What do you want to do?" Fa Tian said, "Anything is good. It's better than picking this up." Tian felt tired after picking up the shards endlessly, let alone the others. Ning Shu had a few thousand more hands than the others, but he needed to control them with his spiritual power. To control a few thousand hands, it consumed a lot of spiritual power. Ning Shu also felt a little tired, but there was nothing he could do. He could only persevere. Moreover, Ning Shu felt that the collapse of these planes was because the Sea of Law was unable to provide energy. Secondly, it might be because the Sea of Law was saving itself. Originally, the existence of these planes would consume the power of the Sea of Law. Without these planes, the burden on the Sea of Law would be less. There was a sad feeling of losing one's arm to survive. Ning Shu felt that the Sea of Law was also quite bitter. It supported so many planes, and there were two little ghosts that crawled out of its stomach. The little ghosts still had to absorb power from the Sea of Law. Ning Shu felt that the Sea of Law was like an old mother who had her bones and marrow sucked. Ning Shu glanced at the busy granduncle. His current situation was very difficult. It was like the terminal stage of cancer. Whether he treated it or not, death was inevitable. End of chapter. Chapter 3729. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. There were simply too many fragments. In the end, even the army of Abyssal Prefect was mobilized. Ning Shu looked at these skeletons and wondered if he should let his own skeletons come and earn some merit. Ning Shu immediately gave up on this idea. His skeletons were few in number. If they came over, then there would be no one to take care of the world of reincarnation. Ning Shu was a little surprised. He did not expect these skeletons to be able to pick up fragments. Was it because of merit? Since Abyssal Prefect came, the little demon naturally followed. When the little demon saw Ning Shu and Fa Tian, it hesitated for a moment before informing Abyssal Prefect and coming over. Fa Tian greeted it and continued to pick up fragments. The little demon also held a bag and picked up fragments. Ning Shu looked at Fa Tian and the little demon picking up fragments and felt a little sad. Why were these existences picking up fragments as easy as picking up small stones? It was probably talent. Talent was something that made people despair. Ning Shu said, "You have to protect your world well. I don't want to be homeless." Tian was startled and asked, "What world?" Fa Tian did not know that this person actually had a deep relationship with Ning Shu and wanted to go home. Ning Shu explained, "He was born in the world of reincarnation." "Oh," Heaven Punisher replied. Ning Shu looked at the little demon. In the past, he had never mentioned the world of reincarnation. After all, it was just a small place in a corner. Now, it actually took the initiative to mention the world of reincarnation and even said that it was home. It seemed like the situation in the Sea of Law was really bad. Ning Shu asked, "If there is no more plane, what will happen to Abyssal Prefect?" The mission of Abyssal Prefect was the same as the little demon. Without the world of reincarnation, would Abyssal Prefect also die? Then the Sea of Law would affect the life and death of too many people. The little demon thought for a moment and said, "He said he is fine, he just has nothing to do." Just like that? Just because he lost his job? Then why did Abyssal Prefect want to kick him into the law of nothingness and create a new Sea of Law? He wanted to kill someone. Speaking, normal people would kill someone because they lost their job or went bankrupt. Because killing this person might give them a new hope. Ning Shu felt that even Abyssal Prefect would be affected. Fa Tian asked the little Abyssal Prefect, "Sea of Reincarnation, you will return, world in the future. If you need me, I'll go back once. I won't go back any other time." Ning Shu asked translation, If my reincarnation, my translation, will Abyssal Prefect. The little Abyssal Prefect translation, I Abyssal Prefect Lord. Ning Shu looked at the densely packed mission enforcers and soldiers. There were also so many skeletons. Grand uncles, abyssal prefects, true Abellas. Translation. No, it seemed that Jing Qing hadn't died yet. He was probably still messing around with granduncle. I don't understand. Everyone was probably struggling on their deathbed. Those who knew the inside story died when they understood it, while those who didn't know the inside story died in confusion. Ning Shu asked the little devil, "How strong are you now?" The little devil said modestly, "It's just so." The abyssal prefect waved his hand at the little devil. The little devil said to Ning Shu again, "You can take care of your world." Ning Shu said, "Got it?" The little fiend dragged the bag to His Excellency's side. The two of them were talking about something, and His Excellency glanced at Ning Shu. Ning Shu and the abyssal prefect exchanged glances. What were they looking at? His Excellency, Ning Shu walked over. Ning Shu held Fation's hand and walked to the side. His Excellency also turned a corner, and Ning Shu came over. Ning Shu reflected on what he had done wrong. He had not mistreated the little demon, so why was the abyssal prefect looking for him? One never visits a temple without a cause. The abyssal prefect walked to Ning Shu's side, leaned over Ning Shu's head, and sniffed. He narrowed his eyes and got closer. Ning Shu quickly avoided him. He looked at him as if he was a pervert. The abyssal prefect asked, "Did you come into contact with something with vitality?" Ning Shu said, "No, I don't know." Get lost. Ning Shu certainly knew what the abyssal prefect was talking about. After all, the peerless martial arts had absorbed some energy, so there must be vitality. It was not easy to need vitality. Holding the energy, it was full of vitality. The abyssal prefect said, "Think about it." Ning Shu pretended to make a sound. No. The abyssal prefect did not say anything to Ning Shu. He turned and walked away. He ran to the granduncle and said something. The granduncle also looked at Ning Shu. Fation asked Ning Shu, "What's wrong?" Ning Shu said, "It's probably because of the peerless martial arts that my body has vitality. That's why it's like this." She thought about it. Other than coming into contact with the peerless martial arts, she really could not think of anything else. In order to avoid the peerless martial arts or to be thrown into the sea of law to increase the power of the sea of law, he had to keep a low profile. Ning Shu did not rule out this possibility. After all, even a powerful person like Jing Qing, who had such a relationship with the granduncle, was thrown in. Just in case, he had to keep a low profile. No matter what the use of the peerless martial arts was, Ning Shu did not intend to hand over the peerless martial arts. Although he did not know if his body was contaminated with vitality or vitality, he did not know, was not clear, and did not understand. Ning Shu said to Fation, "If anyone asks in the future, just say that you don't know." Fation asked, "What are you talking about?" Ning Shu said, "It's about vitality. Just say that you don't know, or say that you have touched the energy." Fation nodded and said, "I know. Don't worry." Ning Shu grinned. "Don't worry?" Not at all. If she did not sink into the pool, it would be the peerless martial arts that sank into the pool. Now that the peerless martial arts were beyond cure, they were treating a dead horse as if it were still alive. They would try any kind of crazy method. Even the corpses of the Little Mouse's clansmen would be thrown in, causing pollution and purification. It was a dead end. Any method would be tried. Although she might be thinking too much. On the other side, the Grand Uncle and His Excellency were whispering in each other's ears. Ning Shu also warned Fation, afraid that Fation would answer whatever others asked. Now, Ning Shu could be sure that the peerless martial arts had really absorbed the energy. Perhaps it was because it was developing toward the world of living beings, so it was full of vitality. Moreover, it was an energy of a higher level than the origin of the world, so it was so full of vitality. Seeing that Ning Shu was so serious, Fan immediately nodded and said, "I know." Ning Shu forced a smile and felt that he should seal the peerless martial arts. Otherwise, such wanton energy would even touch her body. What if others found out? Ning Shu had the world of samsara, but there was no world of living beings. It was very rare, especially the world of living beings that had absorbed the energy. End of chapter. Chapter 3730. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The leaves of the world tree were forming a space, but there was still a long time before it could form a world of living beings. Maybe the world tree wouldn't even react when the peerless martial arts formed a world. Ning Shu was alarmed when she saw the senior uncle and his excellency colluding with each other. When the two of them were together, there was an indescribable sense of horror and cruelty. Ning Shu had reasonable reasons to suspect that Zheng Qing had been tricked by his excellency. Zheng Qing himself had bumps, and he had also tricked her. In the face of the big picture, everything was insignificant. After his excellency came, the senior uncle also came and approached Ning Shu. Although he didn't sniff, Ning Shu still felt that he was like a lapdog. Ning Shu pinched his nose. "Stay away from me. You stink. Stay away from me, a fragrant fairy." Especially since he might be coveting her things. Ning Shu wanted him to spiral into the sky and die early. The senior uncle frowned and asked, "What did you come into contact with?" Ning Shu still said, "No, I don't know." Get lost. How many times did he have to say that he didn't come into contact with her? The senior uncle said, "Yes." Ning Shu said, "No." The senior uncle said, "Definitely." Ning Shu said, "Definitely." Fiyun said, "Really?" The senior uncle said coldly, "Your smell can't lie." Ning Shu shrugged. "What's that smell? Feminine?" Ning Shu smiled. "I know I'm beautiful." Fatian showed a puzzled expression. What was feminine? Senior granduncle's patience had clearly run out. When his eyebrows were knitted, they formed the character Chuan, which made his expression serious and carried a daunting irritation. He was afraid that he would kill him. Ning Shu said, "I don't even know what I've come into contact with, but you insist on asking me what I've come into contact with. How should I know? What are you looking for? Can you just tell me? What's the use of it?" Ning Shu asked tentatively. Most likely because he wanted to know the news from Ning Shu, the Grand Elder tightly knitted his brows and said with a bit of patience, "Looking for energy, Sea of Laws." Ning Shu was startled. As expected, he asked, "Don't you already have an energy body? Why are you still looking for an energy body? One is life force, the other is energy. There is a difference between them. For example, pork and a pig. Pork is one type of energy, while a pig is a living creature with life force. A piece of dead meat, a living being that was alive and kicking, had a soul, and this soul was the key. Ning Shu's heart was in a panic, but on the surface, he was as calm as an old dog. In other words, they were taking pieces of dead meat and trying to piece them together to create a living thing. Fuck, how is this possible? Without a beating heart, it's useless no matter how you put it together. So if the Sea of Law's heart stopped beating, he would change the Sea of Law's heart to a new one? Ning Shu cursed crazily in his heart, but his face was filled with worry. He asked, "Then how do you deal with the life force that you found?" The Grand Elder glanced at Ning Shu condescendingly and didn't answer. Instead he asked, "You mean you know?" Ning Shu quickly shook his head. "I don't know. I'm just asking. Maybe I can look for it next time when I go to the void." The Grand Elder hesitated for a moment and said, "Throw it into the Sea of Law. Or the Law of Nothingness." Ning Shu laughed in his heart. As expected, he wanted to throw her peerless martial art into the Sea of Law. Should he be glad that he didn't throw her in? Ning Shu said, "I don't know what life force is. Maybe it's because I touched a lot of energy bodies and got the smell." The Grand Elder obviously didn't believe him and said, "Pick it up quickly." He turned and left. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. "Fuck, you were the one who came over to talk to her, and now you're saying she's slacking off." As Ning Shu picked up the fragments, he felt that his peerless martial art was really pitiful. Even the slightest bit of life force was being targeted. When he returned, he would seal the peerless martial art to prevent its life force from dissipating. Ning Shu thought that the silver-haired man seemed to know about the peerless martial art. However, at that time, The peerless martial art didn't have the so-called life force, only the dissipated energy. Ning Shu stretched out more vines and sped up, striving to return as soon as possible. There was another system in the system space. Ning Shu was indifferent to Dan Qing, but he didn't know if the organization would ask Dan Qing. If Dan Qing told the truth, he might not be able to keep the peerless martial art. Why was it so difficult to keep an old item? Fa Tian also sped up, knowing that Ning Shu was in a hurry to return. Fa Tian said to Ning Shu, "If it doesn't work, let's leave." Ning Shu shook his head. "We don't have to leave." Fa Tian silently glanced at Ning Shu and said, "According to Murphy's Law, the more you worry about something, the more likely it is to happen. Ning Shu, you'd better not take any chances." Ning Shu laughed. "Oh, you know about Murphy's Law." Fa Tian was speechless. "Don't I know how to learn?" Ning Shu immediately released a strong spiritual power and controlled the vines. He picked up the fragments quickly, but it was a little tiring. Fa Tian looked at Ning Shu. "You're a little silly. If you pick up more, others will pick less. If I keep dragging it out, I might lose something important. It's just a small loss. Besides, picking up more fragments meant more merit. It wasn't a loss." Fa Tian blinked and didn't say anything. After picking up the fragments, Ning Shu looked very tired. It was really tiring to concentrate on controlling so many vines. In the end, he was told that the reward this time was only 1 million per person. Because there were too many fragments, everyone would be given 1 million. Because of the sudden accident and disaster, everyone was involved, so the reward was not necessary. Fa Tian looked at Ning Shu quietly. His eyes were self-evident. Ning Shu shrugged. "At least there's 1 million. If the organization didn't give them the reward, no one could do anything." Fa Tian sighed. "This organization has worn you down." Obviously, the effort and the reward were not equal. After a long time, he would be tired. Ning Shu listened to Fa Tian's old-fashioned words and pulled the corner of his mouth. He dragged Fa Tian back to the system space. "Wait, I want to go back too." The little devil ran over and said to Ning Shu. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. "You want to go back to the world of reincarnation?" The little devil nodded. "Yes, I want to go back and take a look. Is everything okay in the world of reincarnation?" Ning Shu asked the little devil, "Are you scared? Are you afraid that you will be homeless?" The little devil said, "Yes and no." His Excellency agreed to go back. He said that you have something that everyone needs. Ning Shu was melancholy. End of chapter. Chapter 37-31. Ning Shu felt that His Excellency was really asking a child to ask about this. What did the little demon know? Ning Shu said, "No." "Get lost." The little demon said, "No means no." He didn't seem to care at all. He just asked me to ask. He didn't ask you to give it to me. Ning Shu was silent for a while and asked the little demon, "If a person is about to die and the thing in your hand might be able to save him, but it might not be. You don't even know the probability of success. Do you think you should take it out? That thing is very important to you. What would you do?" From a macroscopic perspective, the Sea of Laws was extremely huge. There were trillions of planes, and also a huge organization. There were so many lives, blah 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 blah. In fact, from a micro perspective, whether it was the creation of the organization or the reconstruction of the Sea of Laws, it was the self-saving behavior of the Grand Uncle. This was completely in line with the logic of benefits. Otherwise, why would he create such a big organization and make himself suffer? Was it because the things in the void were not delicious or the scenery was not good? If not for the Sea of Laws, Zheng Qing and the Grand Uncle would not have turned against each other. They would even comb each other's hair and catch lice leisurely. It was all for survival. The existence of the organization was to protect the Sea of Laws and prevent it from being ruined by existences like the little mouse. The power of the Sea of Laws was related to the power of the Grand Uncle and Zheng Qing. There would only be employees when there was a company. A company was not created for employees. The essence of a company was to make money. Now that the company was going bankrupt, she had to take out the thing in her hand to save the company. For everyone's benefit, If she didn't take it out, she didn't see the big picture. This was because the cards were very big. If it collapsed, everyone's lives and benefits would be damaged. Sacrificing a small part to help a large part was the best choice. Ning Shu looked at the little demon. That thing is very important to you. It has extraordinary meaning. Will you take it out? The little demon tilted her head and asked, "Can it be saved?" "Of course, life is more important than that thing." Ning Shu nodded. "You're right. There's nothing more important than life. However, this is a very uncertain thing. There's no way to know the success rate. Moreover, the other party is terminally ill. Death is a very certain thing." The little demon frowned. "Isn't that crazy? Sacrificing something precious to others just for an uncertain chance of survival?" Ning Shu laughed. It was good that it was useful. He would only know if it was useful after he tried it. As for whether it still existed or not, it wasn't important. As for the owner of the item, the little fiend said, "In the world of reincarnation, I saw a lot of souls that died because of terminal diseases. Some gave up on treatment because they knew they would die anyway, so they didn't spend money to save them. The resources they saved could let their families live better. Of course, there are also people who are afraid of death and cherish their lives. They desperately beg their families to treat them. They are a little selfish, but in the end, they want to live. It's a pity that all the money is spent and the people are gone. It makes the living suffer a lot." The little demoness said, "Since this is the case, why waste other people's precious things?" In the world of reincarnation, the little devil could see all kinds of souls. Being born in the world of reincarnation, she could also see all kinds of things in the world. Ning Shu said, "Because I want to live." Strictly speaking, she and the Tai Shu weren't family. They even had a grudge, but she still had to take out this item to save a dying sea of law. Not to mention the probability of success, just the word Tai Shu made Ning Shu very angry. If she willingly took out this item, she would probably be tortured until she was sick. If she let the Tai Shu live, she would be despised by him. To be honest, whether the Tai Shu lived or died had nothing to do with her. She had to take the company's boss' life and death on her own. The other people in the company were also her responsibility. If she didn't guess wrong, many people in the organization had already started to save themselves. They formed groups to keep each other warm, or other methods. The organization had really fallen apart. Everyone went their separate ways. If there was another person in the organization who had this item, would they be willing to take it out? Perhaps they were forced to take it out by the power of the organization. Ning Shu didn't want to talk about this topic. He asked the little demon, "Are you going back to the world of reincarnation?" "Yes, I'm going back to take a look," the little demon said. After thinking for a while, she said, "They asked you for something?" He had mentioned so many people before. If the little demon still didn't know, there was probably something wrong with her brain. Ning Shu said lightly, "It's just a possibility. The possibility is very high." Ning Shu opened the black hole and said, "Go in and take a look. There are skeletons inside, but there aren't many of them." The little demon entered the black hole. The black hole slowly closed. Ning Shu said to Fodder, "Let's go back too." He quickly hid the peerless martial arts. Ning Shu returned to the system space and immediately sealed the peerless martial arts with a barrier to prevent the vitality inside from leaking out. The little mouse looked at the peerless martial arts with a covetous look in its eyes. However, it didn't say that it would be given to it. Because the little mouse knew that even if it said it, Ning Shu wouldn't give it to it. Moreover, it would make the atmosphere bad. How could it give such an important thing to him? However, the little mouse still coveted it very much. It couldn't help but say, "Can you let me lick it?" Ning Shu looked at it from the corner of his eyes and said, "You may need to be beaten up." The little mouse shut up. It didn't look at the peerless martial arts. Instead, it ate the fruit on the tea table. After Ning Shu sealed the peerless martial arts, he came to the reincarnation century. He didn't intend to put it in the system space. Ning Shu took the item and entered the black hole. Fation also followed. Standing on the soft black sand, Ning Shu thought about where to put the item. It couldn't be put in the reincarnation world. The reincarnation world would consume the vitality of the peerless martial arts. Moreover, it would also conflict with the reincarnation world. Therefore, it had to be put in the world of the living, such as the Nine-Palace Mountain. Seeing Ning Shu like this, Hitian frowned and said, "Ning Shu, let's leave. Once we leave, we don't have to worry about these things. You've found the energy body. You've done everything you need to do. If they ask you to give it to them, it's an excessive request. It's as if you're in the organization and should do your best for the organization until your death. You can't care about personal gains and losses. I don't like you being like this." Ning Shu smiled. "Do my best for the organization until my death? You might as well say that I'm doing this out of a humanitarian spirit. After all, I'm a dying man. I won't care about a dying man." There was a kind of superior pity. With a little less merit, Ning Shu wouldn't be poor, but Ning Shu wouldn't be rich either. To view the new chapter of Zue, please go to mobile address. Chapter 3732. Since you can't bear to part with it, you can keep it for yourself as funeral expenses. As for this thing, I don't plan to hand it over. Ning Shu said. It didn't make sense for her to hand over her things just because they were useful to a certain someone. Titian said, "It's good that you know. I'm afraid of you." "I'm afraid of you?" Ning Shu asked. "What's wrong with being afraid of me?" "Being oppressed has become a habit. Then, you feel that it's natural and want to protect it with your life. You have Stockholm's disease," Fatian said. Ning Shu was speechless. "What are you looking at every day?" Fatian was either a law or a disease. Fatian looked at Ning Shu. In her heart, he had always been a very ignorant person. Ning Shu brought Fatian to the second level of Nine-Palace Mountain. At least there were a few acquaintances in this world. However, Ning Shu did not look for Earthworm and the others. Instead, he found a deserted place with a harsh environment. He planned to set up a formation here to store the peerless martial arts. Ning Shu placed the peerless martial arts in the formation. However, he was worried that someone would break into this place, so he fused some consciousness into the peerless martial arts. This way, even if someone broke into the formation silently. However, she would sense it when she encountered the peerless martial arts. Moreover, she would also sense it if they touched her formation. However, this was double insurance. Ning Shu patted the peerless martial arts. He felt that this peerless martial arts had the same fate as her. It was always on the verge of collapse due to various reasons. Fatian wanted to roll her eyes. She asked, "Ning Shu, when are we leaving?" Ning Shu said, "We can leave whenever you want. However, the foundation is not stable yet." Yan asked, "When is the foundation stable?" Ning Shu said, "I have to find something to change your physique. Otherwise, I won't be able to protect you in the void." Fatian pouted. "I don't need you to protect me. I'll protect you." Ning Shu smiled and said, "Okay, then let's protect each other. So, while I'm in the organization, I have to work. It can't be helped." Fatian snorted. "I don't think the welfare of your organization is good at all." Ning Shu was very melancholic. What's welfare? He had never heard of it. There was a saying that went, "The greater the ability, the greater the strength." It was only natural for one to do things because one was strong. As for benefits, sigh, it's fine as long as you're alive. There's no need to have any expectations. Fatian said, "You are slaves who have signed an irrevocable contract. Whether you live or die depends on others. If someone is tired of this job or doesn't want to do it anymore, you won't have a chance to start over. Go to the afterlife." Actually, I can let some souls go to the afterlife. If I don't let them go to the afterlife, do I have to take the last bit of soul power of slaves like you for my own use? Ning Shu looked at Fatian. "How did you think of all this?" Fatian said, "I read the books and asked your system a lot of things. Your organization will even screen the mission takers. Those who don't meet the requirements will be killed. Why don't you let these souls go to the afterlife? You don't have a choice from the beginning to the end. If you are chosen, you don't have a choice. You can't refuse. Otherwise, you will be killed. You don't have a choice even if you die." Fation was probably in the process of forming his values in life. He had a lot of doubts. Ning Shu was silent. She didn't know how to explain to Fation that they were just ants. Was there a need to care about the feelings of ants? If the animals in the circle didn't meet the requirements and couldn't be fattened, they would be killed in advance. If the company fired the employees who couldn't create value, the price they had to pay was even greater. They would be killed and never be able to reincarnate. There was only one path. Even if it was covered with thorns, even if you were barefoot, you had to step on it. Step by step, you had to move forward. Otherwise, you would vanish into thin air. Ordinary company wasn't a philanthropist. It was just an organization that magnified certain rules. Ning Shu changed the topic and said, "I have an idea. Do you want to hear it?" Fation looked at her silently. A green tree appeared in Ning Shu's palm. The tree was very exquisite and pocket-sized, but it could become very big. Ning Shu said, "I want to let the tree of world absorb some of this vitality. If people ask, I will say it is the tree of world." Theon said, "Do as you see fit." Ning Shu entered the unique martial arts. Seeing that Fation didn't move, she asked, "You're not going in?" Fation shook his head. "I'm not going in. I'll wait outside. If there are some things that I can't figure out, I'll figure it out myself." Obviously, Fation was upset that Ning Shu didn't answer his question. Ning Shu said, "Is it more convenient to send these souls to the afterlife, or is it more convenient to just kill them? Also, this is the only way for people to work with all their might. This is survival, not just muddling along. They could kill them with a wave of their hand. If they still wanted to send those eliminated souls to the afterlife, another department would be created to take charge of this. How troublesome." Fation looked at Ning Shu and said, "Are you speaking for this organization?" Ning Shu was surprised. "Why would you think so? I'm just stating the facts. I'm just thinking from the perspective of convenience." There was a standard for how precious life was. Some people's lives were precious, but others weren't worth mentioning. Fation said, "I thought you couldn't bear to leave this organization." Ning Shu shook his head. "I'm not reluctant." Ning Shu entered the unique martial arts and took out the Tree of World. He let the Tree of World absorb some of this remaining vitality and energy. If they asked in the future, Ning Shu would take out the Tree of World directly. As for the unique martial arts, Ning Shu wanted to keep it. After putting the Tree of World in the unique martial arts, Ning Shu came out and prepared to stay in the world of samsara for a while to consume some of his vitality. Otherwise, as soon as he got close to her, others would think that she was contaminated with something very vital. Fation stayed with Ning Shu in the world of samsara. Fation looked at the pool of reincarnation and was eager to jump in. Ning Shu pulled Fation. "Don't jump in. The pool of reincarnation can't withstand it." Fation was a creature in the hollow, while the pool of reincarnation was only a part of the world of samsara. Fation stretched his neck and looked at all kinds of mirages. He said, "These pictures are so beautiful." The pool of reincarnation was dedicated to creating happy and beautiful pictures. It could lure souls to jump in. Fation said to Ning Shu, "There are all the happy pictures in my mind." Ning Shu nodded and glanced at the thunder beast sleeping beside the pool of reincarnation. Its body was flashing with thunder and lightning. He felt that the thunder beast's strength had been fixed, and so had its intelligence. Ning Shu wanted to give the thunder beast some intelligence-enhancing elixir to improve its intelligence. It should be possible. The kelp was a cluster of kelp, but it could grow a little intelligence after eating the intelligence-enhancing elixir. To view the new chapter of Zue, please go to mobile phone address. Chapter 37-33. Ning Shu did as he said. He returned to the system space and exchanged for a handful of elixirs. These elixirs weren't expensive, so it didn't cost much to exchange for a handful. Back in the world of samsara, Ning Shu woke up the thunder beast and threw the elixir in front of it. "Eat it. Maybe you'll become smarter." Ning Shu felt that it was probably because it had eaten this kind of elixir that it was so smart now. Although this kind of elixir seemed to be for creatures other than humans, it didn't say that humans couldn't eat it. Who knew what the aftereffects would be? Anyway, she didn't think there would be any aftereffects. Did imagining things count as aftereffects? The Thunder Beast opened its eyes and looked at the elixir in front of it. It stuck out its tongue and swallowed the elixir. Then it closed its eyes and went back to sleep. Ning Shu looked at the Thunder Beast. He didn't know when the Thunder Beast would be able to digest the elixir and gain some intelligence. Tian asked, "What did you eat?" Ning Shu said, "Elixir. It can increase intelligence." Hearing that it could increase intelligence, Tian said, "I want to eat it too." Ning Shu shook his head. "Forget it. Maybe there will be some side effects." Ning Shu wouldn't say that he had eaten this kind of elixir. Tian didn't insist on eating it. He was already very smart. He said to Ning Shu, "If someone else eats it, you should eat more." Ning Shu squinted at him. "What do you mean? Are you saying that I'm stupid?" Tian shook his head. "I don't think so. Ning Shu. That's what you think. This kind of elixir could increase intelligence, but it probably didn't have much effect on creatures that already had intelligence." Ning Shu felt that Tian especially didn't like her in this organization. To sum it up, it was probably a kind of sadness for her misfortune and anger for her incompetence. Rise up, people who don't want to be slaves. Probably in Tian's heart, she was a slave, and a slave who couldn't think or resist. Tian's starting point was too high. Moreover, he was born when Ning Shu was only slightly stronger than Ning Shu. If he had gone through those tough times with Ning Shu, he probably wouldn't have said that. In the end, people like Tian had better luck. They didn't need to suffer hardships. No matter whose hands Tian was in, they would take good care of him. In the end, Tian still cared about her. Ning Shu's heart was very warm. He said, "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. It doesn't matter if it's a small loss. I've never suffered a big loss before." Tian looked at Ning Shu silently. He didn't understand what she was so proud of. "So it's okay to suffer a little loss? You think you're amazing just because you didn't suffer a big loss? Was this something worth bragging about?" Her bottom line was really low. Ning Shu received another wave of pity from Tian. Ning Shu was speechless. This child. Tian felt that when he wasn't around in the past, she must have suffered a lot and occasionally suffered a big loss. That's why she could treat a loss as a blessing and be so calm. The little devil looked like she was patrolling her own territory. She walked around the few worlds of reincarnation before coming to Ning Shu's side. The little devil said to Ning Shu, "There aren't enough skeletons in the world of reincarnation. Make some skeletons." Ning Shu said, "It's a little troublesome. We have to find souls with deep obsession and also find corpses." Fusing souls and corpses together through the forceful fusion of arrays had a very high elimination rate. That's why we have to use souls with deep obsession. Without any obsession, it was impossible to bear such pain. The little devil said, "There are indeed fewer souls with deep obsession in these few worlds of reincarnation. I'll go to other worlds of reincarnation to take a look." Ning Shu was a little surprised to see the little devil suddenly take up the responsibility. In the past, the little devil was too lazy to care. She probably grew up. Tian didn't know the process of making skeletons, so he asked the little devil. He listened carefully. Ning Shu listened to the process and said to Tian, "To the organization, I'm like those souls with deep obsession. If I'm eliminated, there's only death. Those who are chosen have no choice. They can't refuse. If they fail, there's only death. Just like when they were chosen by the organization, they had no choice. They couldn't refuse. That's because the Sea of Law needed existences like them to complete missions and do some trivial things. And the world of reincarnation also needed existences like them to handle the trivial matters of the world of reincarnation. For example, the problem of calamity beasts and patrolling the world of reincarnation." Ning Shu said to Tian, "Do you care about the life and death of these souls?" Tian hesitated for a moment before nodding honestly, "I don't care. They have nothing to do with me, but you do." Ning Shu.io. Ning Shu told Tian all this just to let Tian know that everyone had times when they couldn't control themselves. They were helpless and had no choice. Ning Shu, you don't care about these souls, just like how the organization doesn't care about people like me. Do you understand? Tian looked at Ning Shu with pity. I understand. I won't call you an idiot in the future. Ning Shu, but the little devil couldn't understand what these two were talking about. What was a soul? What's the point of talking about feelings with food? They were like chickens, ducks, geese, and so be it. He couldn't be bothered to say anything more to these two. The little devil went back. Since he wanted to find those souls with deep obsession, he just needed to say a word and someone would do it for him. Ning Shu stayed in the world of reincarnation for a long time to wear down the life force on his body. Otherwise, every time he met her, others would be able to sense some life force. It seemed to be quite important. Ning Shu returned to the system space. Dan Qing said, "The main system wants to see you. Let's meet at the usual place." Ning Shu, where is the usual place? Just like the spy meeting, Ning Shu didn't need to think to know that it was about the life force. It was necessary to make it clear. Tian said, "I'll go with you." Ning Shu always felt that now that Tian had grown up, he looked at her as if she was an idiot. The god's favored one looked down on her, a user who was like an idiot. When they arrived at the consulting room, the silver-haired man was already waiting. He was flipping through a book. When he saw Ning Shu, he closed the book and looked at Ning Shu. Looking at the silver-haired man sitting upright, Ning Shu felt that there was probably going to be a serious negotiation. Ning Shu sat down. The silver-haired man looked as if she was the one who was begging for help. Ning Shu looked at him blankly and asked, "Why are you looking for me? Do you have anything to tell me?" Tian glanced at Ning Shu silently. He felt that it was urgent to build her self-esteem. The silver-haired man said, "You should know it in your heart." "Yes, I don't know." Ning Shu shook her head and said, "No, don't know?" It was like interrogating a prisoner. Was this the attitude of asking for help? "Sorry, I don't know what you said." "I don't know and I don't understand." The silver-haired man said, "If you come into contact with something, please tell me. You should know the seriousness of the matter." Chapter 37-34. Sorry, I didn't realize the severity. What Ning Shu disliked the most was whether it was the Tai Shu or the silver-haired man. It was obviously a very personal matter, but they had to involve the big picture. Why did he have to save the Sea of Laws? It was because of the Tai Shu. It seemed that if he didn't follow their requirements, he was not kind and did not care about the big picture. Whether it was the big picture or the individual, he wanted others to sacrifice, but he had to stand high and mighty. He had to negotiate like a negotiation. Let's talk about what you can give first, and not just say that you already have the money, but you still want to save face. If he wanted face, he didn't want face. Ning Shu just looked at the silver-haired man and didn't speak. The atmosphere was a bit solemn. Since the other party didn't speak, Ning Shu lowered his head and played with his hands. This pair of jade hands was really beautiful. After a few seconds of silence, the silver-haired man said, "Can you tell me?" Ning Shu said, "I really don't know. The vitality you mention might be because the world tree is going to form the vitality of the living world." Ning Shu felt that the silver-haired man had taken the energy of the peerless martial arts, but there was no vitality. It was probably because the peerless martial arts had absorbed the energy. After various transformations, it became another kind of energy vitality. For example, when meat was eaten, it was broken down into amino acids, oil, fat, and so on. It was probably this kind of vitality. The silver-haired man shook his head. "No, the formation of this kind of living world doesn't have such vitality." Ning Shu's expression was indifferent. "When the time comes, I'll show you the world tree." The world tree had absorbed that vitality. The silver-haired man, of course, could see that Ning Shu was being perfunctory. He said, "If your reincarnation world was about to explode and there was something that could save it, what would you do?" Ning Shu laughed. "What would I do? Guess what I would do?" Ning Shu's expression became serious. "If there's no saving it, I won't save it, because birth, aging, illness, and death are normal. Nothing can escape decay and death. Everything has new life and death. Any living thing would die. The silver-haired man narrowed his eyes. What about the souls in your reincarnation world? Ning Shu said, without the skin, where can the hair attach? When the living environment is gone, it will naturally perish. The silver-haired man looked at Ning Shu and said, you're quite optimistic. Do you think you won't die? Ning Shu chuckled. He wouldn't die? It was the will of death that could not die, not her. Her consciousness had been erased, and she had died. The grand uncle and the silver-haired man in front of her also wanted to erase her consciousness and give birth to a new personality. It could be seen that nothing was truly eternal. Except for death. The silver-haired man and the others were mocking her for being cold and heartless. At that time, Ning Shu still felt that these people were like ancient emperors who wanted to pursue immortality, crazy. In the past, Ning Shu had been too afraid of death. Now that he had seen the light, death was inevitable. Don't worry about the future. The silver-haired man frowned and said, if you are willing to take out this thing, I will exchange it with something else. I didn't snatch your thing. Ning Shu had been wearing a fake smile. At this time, he suddenly burst into laughter. He laughed so hard that tears came out. He slapped the table and was overjoyed. The silver-haired man looked at Ning Shu indifferently. Fat on side. Ning Shu found it really funny. Since when did not snatch other people's things become a merit worth writing about? He probably thought that since the organization was so strong, it would be easy for them to snatch your things. Not snatching your things was the greatest kindness. He should be grateful. Ning Shu put away the smile on her face and said, I really don't know what it is. You guys are so mysterious, asking people for things. I'm still at a loss. The thing I've come into contact with is the world tree. The world tree is about to form a living world. If he knew something, he would probably snatch it if he could. If he was forced into a corner, he would harden his heart and leave. Ning Shu asked, can't the Sea of Law still exist for millions of years? Why do you give me the feeling that the Sea of Law will kneel in the next moment? The silver-haired man asked. Is millions of years long? Ning Shu was shocked. Is it not long? Millions of years. Now that the Sea of Law was on the verge of death, it could still hold on for so long. How long had the Sea of Law existed? It was an unimaginable old knot. Although millions of years might be an exaggeration, Ning Shu felt that the Sea of Law might still be there even if she kneeled. He did not know why she was so anxious. It was probably because the grand uncle's situation was not too optimistic. To be honest, someone like the grand uncle who had lived for who knows how many years had already lived long enough. Ordinary humans, 100 years, cats and dogs, at most 10 years. Shouldn't they be more anxious and worried that they were going to die every day? Until now, she had lived for a few thousand years. At most, she had lived for 5,000 years. Millions of years, she did not even dare to think about it. The silver-haired man was speechless. What do you want? The silver-haired man asked. What do I want? Ning Shu thought about it. He really did not know what he wanted. What did she want? Immunity? Oh, she did not need it. She did not need anything else. The only thing she needed was probably something that could change her physique. Ning Shu asked, something that can change my physique. It's best if the side effects are lower. Di Wu was too fluctuating. Heaven and earth, it was unbearable. The silver-haired man narrowed his eyes. So, you have such a thing in your hands? Ning Shu shook his head. No, I can help you find it. The void is so big, miracles exist. Ning Shu asked with some doubt. In the void, there are other birth points of other planes. Why don't you go and collect the life force of these? The silver-haired man said, a mature birth point of a plane cannot be extracted. Ning Shu said, can't you draw it? The way it exists is different. How do you draw it? How do you draw a tree to the Sea of Law? Ning Shu spread his hands. Then there's no other way. I hope to find a new Sea of Law. Even if a new Sea of Law was found, it was equivalent to cutting a kidney for this Sea of Law. This Sea of Law had Grand Uncle absorbing energy from it. There were also billions of planes. The burden was huge. Grand Uncle was in a dilemma now. Cut off the plane to prevent it from absorbing energy. However, Such a large group of people surrounded the sea of law and did nothing. It was inevitable that people's hearts would be scattered. This group of people existed because of the plains. Zheng Qing had made grand-uncle cut off the plains connected to the sea of law. However, he did not know that without these plains, the problem was very big. If he did not cut them off, it would be a burden to the sea of law. The silver-haired man wanted to say something but hesitated. After some thought, he said, "In the void, there is no state of repeated existence." Chapter 37-35. There were no repeated forms, that was to say that the law sea was unique, just like every individual. Ning Shu shrugged his shoulders, that Tai Shu and the others wanted to defy the heavens and change their fate to create a new law sea, but he did not know if they could create it artificially. Ning Shu had a sympathetic expression, but he still said that he did not know what life was. Ning Shu sighed and said, "Let's just go with the flow. People and things will die, what's important is the time to live." And not always thinking that she was going to die in the future. Death was inevitable, but Ning Shu felt that it was not worth it to spend her limited life on such things. Furthermore, she was powerless about the law sea. Even if the law sea was destroyed, she would be destroyed as well. She did not have the power to live, there was no way. Just like the billions of planes, there would be planes being destroyed every moment, and the living beings inside would be destroyed along with the planes. They were all being destroyed, but the difference was that they were being destroyed one by one, and suddenly all the planes were being destroyed at the same time. Because destruction was something that could not be reversed. The destruction of one plane, 5 planes, or even 10 planes did not seem to be a big deal, but when all the planes were destroyed at the same time, it did not seem to be a big deal, but in reality, it was the same. The final result was destruction, because the plane was aging and could not bear the destruction. Just like a human's body, it would continue to be exhausted and eventually die. If there was no organization, she would not be able to live, but Ning Shu would still not hand over the peerless martial arts, because there was nothing more important than being alive. And not worrying about what happened after death. This was the cost of desperately saving up for a coffin, reluctant to eat or wear, but in reality, after death, they would not know anything and no one would care if there was a coffin or not. The cart before the horse was reversed. Furthermore, to save the law sea, it was all in the fumbling stage, throwing everything in. Although the silver-haired man did not sigh, his eyebrows softened a little, and he said, "Man proposes, God disposes, otherwise, we will be indifferent and watch it wither away." If it was straightforward, it could still be saved. He couldn't just do nothing, right? Ning Shu asked, how much life force is needed to make the law sea better? The silver-haired man said, very large. Ning Shu was speechless. Her peerless martial art was so small, like a notebook. Even if she threw it down, it wouldn't make a splash. And the thing she treasured was just an experiment. Ning Shu's mood was very clear when she was asked to hand over the peerless martial art. She was unwilling, conflicted, and unhappy. If he handed it over, she would be very unhappy, and it would last for a long time. Even when she was alive, this matter would be imprinted in her heart. This feeling of unhappiness might last until she perished. If he were to make himself so unhappy for the sake of an illusory possibility, he might as well live happily until he died. At least he was happy. Ning Shu said calmly, I'll keep an eye out for such life forms in the void. I'll inform you when I find them. The silver-haired man nodded. Thank you. Ning Shu held Fa Tian's hand and walked out of the consultation room. The silver-haired man looked at their backs and frowned. Fa Tian looked up at Ning Shu and said, Ning Shu, you should be a self-respecting girl. Don't you think that when you face this organization, it's very... Tian's expression was a little twisted. Ning Shu said, just say it. I won't blame you. Very cheap. They asked you for something and you didn't give it to them. Then you quickly promised to help them find it. You're really cheap. What are you afraid of? Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu asked, why do you say that? The child had really grown up. Previously, it was her telling him stories. Now, it was the child telling her that she had to be a self-respecting girl. Seeing that Ning Shu wasn't angry, Fatian said, "Take this matter for example. That thing was originally yours. When they asked you for it, you had the right to refuse. Even if there was really a life form in it, so what? You shouldn't beat around the bush and hide it. You look like you're begging. You're making a promise to protect something that belongs to you. Weak and cheap." Ning Shu nodded. "Go on." Fatian stood on tiptoe and wanted to touch Ning Shu's head, but he was limited by his height. He sighed and said, "I don't know what you've been through before, but in my heart, you're a bun." Ning Shu laughed. "A bun? A troublemaker." She had been killed several times. This was the first time someone had described her as a bun. Ning Shu asked, "Is it meat or sesame?" Fatian said, "Tofu." Fatian said, "The things you've caused trouble for us are just small things. But you've never jumped out of the organization to see things. You want equality. You have to jump out of the organization to see things." Fatian looked at Ning Shu with watery eyes. "Actually, you still haven't achieved spiritual freedom." Ning Shu looked at Fatian in shock. This child's mind was developing at the speed of light. Ning Shu asked, "How do you think about these things?" Fatian said, "When you're not around, I'll think about things on my own. When I'm by your side, I've seen more and more of it." Ning Shu said, "Oh. Perhaps there really were differences in intelligence." Ning Shu felt that he was truly at a loss, so he asked, "Why do you think my spirit isn't free?" Fatian thought for a bit. His expression was a bit conflicted. After a while, he organized his words and said, "Think of this sea of laws, this organization as a family. Because the sea of laws gave birth to this plane, and you were born from this plane, it's like a parent giving birth to a child. A filial piety is pressing down on you. If you want to break through, or if you want to have your own personality, or if you want to cause problems that are not beneficial to this family, then with this filial piety, for the sea of laws, for the plane, for this family, you should give in. Since you want to break free, but can't break free, you're just a bun being exploited by others. Since you want freedom, but can't break free from this worldly reputation, you care too much about some things. What's the difference between you and those foolishly filial people?" Ning Shu sighed. Fatian continued, "According to your logic, the void gave birth to me. If the void were to be destroyed one day, as a person who didn't stop the void from being destroyed, wouldn't that be a great sin? After all, so many living beings in the void died because of me. So, even the destruction of the void became my fault. You're taking responsibility for something that doesn't belong to you. When it's time for the sea of laws to be destroyed, isn't this a natural phenomenon? Why do you have to talk about endless emotions? /BK. Chapter 37-36. Fatian furrowed his brows. It was obvious that he really wanted to say these words. "Ning Shu, don't you think too highly of yourself? Please don't put on such an act and pretend to be good. I don't like it, and it makes me feel disgusted. You think too highly of yourself. You're like this now because you don't have the strength, and you have to lie in those muddy waters. You're still resentful, so you're despicable. On the phone. You're very good at touching yourself. You're shouldering the responsibilities of the organization and the plane. You think you're selflessly contributing for your family? You think you're great and kind? Since you want to shoulder it, others will of course let you shoulder it." Fatian finished blabbering and looked into Ning Shu's eyes. Fatian was a little nervous and said weakly, "You asked me to say it." Ning Shu patted Fatian's head. "You and I are strong and I'm smart. I just realized that I have such a personality flaw." It was actually an invisible bun? Ning Shu suddenly realized what those invisible things that were pressing down on her were. Fatian grinned. "You're not angry." Ning Shu shook her head. "I'm not angry and you're right." She smiled. "When I was alive, I spent most of my time in the hospital. After that, I became a mission enforcer. When I was weak, the organization left a deep impression in my heart. It was majestic, irresistible, and cruel. And for a long time, my goal was to gain the recognition of others and not be erased." She worked hard to complete missions. She heard that building a world of life would not be erased. She worked hard to build a world of life, to find the origin of the world, to find the carrier of the world. She was like a child trying to please her strict parents, trembling with fear. She was taking on these things now to prove that she was strong, that she was capable, that she wanted the heavens. She was holding back her anger. Ning Shu suddenly realized that she had probably been brainwashed. Although the organization disdained to do such a thing, the initial influence on her was deeply rooted in her mind when facing such a colossus. Ning Shu felt that this was probably why he was so tired. On one hand, he wanted to let himself go, but on the other hand, he had a lot of worries. Tian said, "The sea of law perished because it was time for it to perish. It did not perish because you did not hand over something. The sea of law will definitely perish, it cannot be saved. And the so-called treatment method is just a lie to yourself and others. The destruction of the sea of laws should not be the reason for you to hand it over, understand?" Tian looked at Ning Shu seriously. "That's why you have to abandon those pointless feelings of guilt. If you want to talk about guilt, everyone has it. Those planes that were born by relying on the sea of laws, and those Taishu who absorbed energy from the sea of laws. Even if you were born from a plane, how much power do you think you have obtained from the sea of law? Everyone is responsible, but you have to bear all the sins of the destruction of the sea of laws, just because you didn't hand over anything useless." Tian looked a little tired. The more he spoke, the softer his voice became. He looked a little tired. At that moment, Ning Shu did not know if she was the child, or if Tian was the child. Her mind rumbled, as if something had crushed her. It did not hurt, but it was painful. She was thinking that the pride of the creatures of the void lands was innate. Ning Shu felt that she had never had that kind of pride before. And the courage to face things head-on, that was something she never had. The matters of the world were simple, so simple that I am willing, I am not willing, it was just 5 words. It was complicated, extremely complicated. The power of the outside world tugged at one's heart. It was so complicated that one could not help themselves. All the tugging was nothing more than one's own weakness, not daring to say that I am willing, I am not willing. Ning Shu squatted down, buried her head in her arms, and started wailing. Her so-called perseverance, her so-called strength, was actually unable to withstand a single blow. She was actually a weak person, her shell had become thicker, but she was still weak on the inside. A person whose heart was unable to withstand a single blow. All of her worries were nothing more than weakness. Ning Shu's wailing was extremely loud. Squatting on the street, her wailing caused everyone on the street to look over. That kind of wailing was heart-wrenching. Tian was bewildered by Ning Shu's sudden crying. He clumsily patted Ning Shu's back with his hand and said in a panic, "Don't cry, I won't call you cheap in the future." Tian was reflecting on whether his words were too harsh, but Tian suppressed these words in his heart. He really wanted to say them. The person who used him should not be such a person. If she continued to be like this, Tian did not dare to guarantee that he would not leave her one day. Ning Shu cried until she hiccuped, crying even more wantonly. Tian was helpless. He patted her back again and again, letting her cry. Tian felt that he was the one who should be crying. As a creature of the void, he was cooped up in a small place every day. Ning Shu did not know how long she had been crying. She only felt that she should cry. After crying enough, Ning Shu wiped her eyes and said to Tian, "Thank you." Tian looked at Ning Shu's red eyes and nose and cracked a smile. "I still like you, even though you're cheap." Ning Shu was speechless. She really did not expect her image in Tian's heart to be like this. Ning Shu stood up and said to Tian, "Let's go eat, I'm very hungry." She desperately wanted to eat a big meal. Tian tilted his head and said, "Overeating is a way for humans to get rid of stress. You want to overeat now?" Ning Shu nodded. "Yes, I want to vent, I want to overeat." And Ning Shu did not know what she wanted to vent, probably because of the dust and grievances that had settled in her heart for a long time, and an inexplicable sense of relief. Ning Shu said, "Humans not only want to eat when they're stressed, they also want to eat when they're happy." Tian was led by Ning Shu to the restaurant. She looked up and asked, "So are you happy now or not?" Ning Shu said, Happy and not happy. Fation shook his head. It's so complicated. Ning Shu arrived at the restaurant and ordered all the dishes in the restaurant, soup, water, pastries, everything. Ning Shu wolfed down the food. She picked up the plate and poured it into her mouth, not even using chopsticks. Her cheeks were stuffed full, and then she forced herself to swallow the food in her mouth, looking ferocious. You eat too. Ning Shu pushed the dessert in front of Fation. Children should love sweet things like this. Fation looked at Ning Shu, speechless, thinking that she was probably crazy. She was probably relying on the fact that she was a soul, so she had no scruples. Sigh, she tried to be tolerant, but what else could she do? She could only make do with it. She could not leave. Fation scooped up the dessert with a small spoon, her two short legs shaking under the table. /BK. Chapter 37:37. Ning Shu finished all the food by himself. Even in his spirit state, he felt a little bloated. After wiping his mouth, Ning Shu sat on the chair limply. He rubbed his stomach and burped. Fation asked, "What do you plan to do next?" Ning Shu, "I'll do what I have to do." Fation frowned. "Don't tell me you're still like this. Then why did you cry before? I thought you had gained enlightenment." Ning Shu rubbed his stomach and said, "I cried that I was a fool, cried that I thought I was infallible, and thought too highly of myself, but I finally know where the problem is." Fation asked, "What problem?" Ning Shu looked at Fation and said, "I was too greedy. Greedy people will not have a good ending. I deserve to be in so much pain. I am a person with no ability, and I still have to care about everything. I want a good reputation, like being the savior of the world, but I can't bear to lose it. I want good things, but I can't bear the pressure and responsibility brought about by the responsibility. I want to protect what I have, but I also want to obtain what I can't. I still care about everything, but when I was really entrusted with a heavy responsibility and couldn't do it well, the feeling of powerlessness and failure is the source of my pain. Strength was not worthy of ambition." Ning Shu looked at Fodian and said, "You are right. Sometimes I am really cheap and still complaining. It will only make things worse." For this matter, Ning Shu's heart wanted to protect the peerless martial arts, but she was afraid that she would bear the responsibility of the destruction of the Sea of Laws because of her. She was afraid in her heart. In the end, she was afraid of bearing a bad reputation, like being an ingrate, like being the main culprit. In truth, she was also controlled by her reputation by the outside world. At the same time, she probably felt that she was inferior to the organization and was very humble, and felt that the organization had done her a great favor. She felt that she owed them a lot, but when she thought about it, she was brought onto a path of no return and could not turn back. And her strength was also obtained through her own struggles. The feeling of inferiority in her heart might be due to the difference in strength. Fation said, "Since you've realized it, why haven't you left yet?" Ning Shu shook his head and said, "You probably haven't experienced the great terror of being crushed to death with one finger. You're very lucky. As for me, I climbed up from the bottom. The cautiousness in my bones probably can't be eliminated. Being a coward has become a habit." Fation was very lucky. He was born with great strength and stood at the peak, allowing him to live with pride and dignity. In the mortal world, it was said that those with money and power could do whatever they wanted. In such a world, those who were strong could do whatever they wanted. The Heaven Punisher could do whatever he wanted. It was very easy for the Heaven Punisher, but for her, it was difficult to move forward. She had exhausted all of her strength. Who didn't want to live happily and wantonly? Ning Shu envied Fation's confidence, courage, and pride. While she was weak, she matched herself with an incomparably great ambition, increasing the pain on her path. The difference between her ideals and reality was the source of her pain. Ning Shu felt that she was really stupid. She didn't know what she should do and what she shouldn't do. She was really stupid. She wanted to care, but she didn't have the ability or the responsibility. She endured the pain and cried, sob, sob, sob. She overestimated herself and was unbelievably stupid. Speaking of which, Ning Shu wanted to cry again. How shameful! Fa Tian's powerful confidence came from his strength, while Ning Shu felt that her ambition was higher than the heavens, but she had the life of a servant. She gritted her teeth and pretended to be arrogant. In the end, she was a lowly person, lowly and sensitive. Because of the lowly and unwillingness in her heart, she was forced to take on something that was beyond her own responsibility. In the end, she couldn't do it well and couldn't make the sacrifice. No wonder Fa Tian said that she was pretending to be kind and was very cheap. She was flustered and stumbled, afraid that her contribution was too little, so she tried her best to make her existence known. She was really stupid. Fa Tian stuck the spoon into the dessert and asked, "What do you plan to do next?" "Next, I will be more down to earth and keep a low profile," Ning Shu said. Seeing that Fa Tian was unhappy, she said, "My strength is my weakness." Ning Shu also felt that it was a waste to let a powerful void being accompany him to waste his time. Although Ning Shu didn't feel that the process of him becoming stronger was a waste of time, but to Fa Tian, it might be a waste of time. Fa Tian frowned deeply, his small face was serious, and said to Ning Shu, "Don't you feel it? You are actually being coerced. They are pulling an organization, pulling billions of planes to coerce you. These mountains are pressing down on you. First, it's an organization, and then it's a plane. The essence of this is just the death of something." Then took a sip of tea. The dessert was too greasy. "You see these planes as cells, the sea of law as a person, but it is actually a person's birth, aging, illness, and death. Do you see it from a macroscopic perspective? Strength in numbers. So what's so great about having more people?" Ning Shu nodded. "So what's so great about having more people? History has proven that going against the people will not end well." Fa Tian was speechless. Ning Shu saw that Fa Tian was really angry, and said, "I am just teasing you, you don't have to worry about me. The time I am in the organization, just treat it as your childhood, don't worry so much." Fa Tian sighed. Do as you see fit. First you have to stand up, don't think that suffering is a good thing. Suffering a loss, and still comforting yourself, this is something that must be experienced in life. Such an unpleasant thing is still something that must be experienced in life. Suffering a loss is suffering is suffering, and still treating these things as something that must be experienced in life. Life is already so bitter, and you still think so. Don't think that these hardships have helped you. Suffering will only cause pain. Without suffering, you will be better. Ning Shu, sometimes if you don't think so, you might not be able to endure. Self-comforting has some effect. No one was willing to suffer, no one was willing to suffer. Ning Shu said, "Are you done eating? If you are, let's go back." Tian jumped off the stool and said, "Then let's go back." Ning Shu paid the bill, left the restaurant, opened the black hole, and led Fa Tian into the world of samsara. She had a thought in her mind. It was impossible to hand over the peerless martial arts. It was impossible in this life. She decided not to take on the responsibilities that she could not bear. She already did not want those empty things, such as a good reputation. Kindness, she was probably very hypocritical. She was still a half-baked person with no strength. In fact, doing the most basic things well, guarding the bottom line was enough. Regarding the problem of the sea of laws, she was powerless. Most people were powerless in the face of death, just like the current situation. To view the new chapter of Zue, please go to the mobile address. Chapter 37-38. In the past, she was probably like, "Io, the sea of law is going to be destroyed. What should I do if it is destroyed? I want to help. But when the other party really wants me to help, I am not willing to take out the thing." A proper hypocrite. Pretending to be kind. Ning Shu entered the second floor of the company and arrived at the place where the peerless martial arts were placed. Ning Shu looked at the floating peerless martial arts, with dark gold words on the cover. Tian asked, "You want to hand this thing over, to prove that you can bear the responsibility?" Ning Shu shook his head. "No, I can't bear the responsibility. I don't want those empty things. Only those that are in my hands are real." Tian then said, "That's right, if this thing can be saved, then so be it, but if it can't be saved, then it's meaningless to hand it over. You have lost something that you cherish, and there is no improvement on the other side. Ning Shu said to Fa Tian, "You can go out, I will stay inside for a while." Fa Tian asked suspiciously, "What are you going to do? I'll accompany you, you can't be taking things too hard, right?" Ning Shu. Taking things too hard, trying to live on, this life is too precious. Ning Shu said, "I want to fuse with the peerless martial arts, even if I don't fuse with my mind, I want to fuse with half of my soul." This kind of peerless martial arts was stained with the will of death. If the other party forcefully snatched it, even if it was thrown down, it could still speed up the destruction of the sea of law. She was gauging the heart of a gentleman with her own mean measure to prevent the future from happening. Now that Ning Shu had openly admitted the darkness in his heart, he would not feel pain because of the injustice that he had encountered, because that was the truth. It was human nature for the Taishu and the others to want to live, whether it was by unscrupulous means, trickery, or exchange with courtesy. It was also human nature for her to not hand over her own things. She had the ownership of this thing. Fa Tian did not say anything, he did not agree or stop it. Ning Shu forcefully split half of his soul and fused it with the peerless martial arts. When he was splitting her soul, Ning Shu felt as if there was a blunt axe, chopping her soul again and again. She was in so much pain that she wished she was dead. Furthermore, to forcibly integrate one's soul into a peerless martial art was probably as difficult as forcibly squeezing water into a rock. However, he had to fuse them bit by bit. The longer it took, the longer the pain he had to endure. Dripping water could penetrate a stone. Fa Tian watched silently for a while and then left. He probably didn't want to see Ning Shu in pain. Ning Shu had cut off half of her soul power and had to expend energy to fuse with it. This caused her soul to become more and more transparent. She could only grit her teeth and persevere. In the future, the peerless martial arts would be equivalent to an arm of hers. She could return to her side with just a thought. It was no longer a simple mental imprint. Mental imprints could be erased, but they were a part of Ning Shu's body. When Fa Tian was still a whip, he already had a mental imprint. Now, in Fa Tian's mind, Ning Shu didn't feel that his imprint was still there. It was only a matter of time before the Heaven Destroyer decided to erase it on its own. However, Fa Tian was no longer a simple weapon. Whether he stayed or left, it was no longer up to her to decide. The most important thing was still herself. Ning Shu was determined not to let external things affect her mind. She worked hard to maintain this belief in her heart. Trembling with fear and worrying about personal gains and losses would only make her weaker. Ning Shu hoped that in the end she would walk together with Fa Tian, not because of some imprint, but because of her own ability, strength, and the feelings they had for each other. If Fa Tian wanted to leave her, Ning Shu wouldn't say anything. In fact, humans were creatures that couldn't be together for long periods of time. This was because a devil lived in a human's heart. After passion, it would be dull. After boredom, it would be picky. After dispute, it would be cold. In the end, they arrived at the gate that they had to pass through. Some hesitated, some straightforwardly parted ways. Only a few people resolutely walked through. When the devil's song enveloped them, as long as they covered their ears, looked straight at the vast horizon, and walked, they would welcome the dawn. Ning Shu MP, it hurts. Ning Shu numbly integrated the peerless martial arts. Day and night, when he came out again, his soul was already transparent. Only a faint outline could be seen. Tian asked, "Ning Shu, where are you? I can't see you." Ning Shu was speechless. Fa Tian took out a few bottles of soul fluid. "I went to get it from your skeleton." Ning Shu took a few bottles of soul fluid and gulped it down. After removing the impurities inside, Ning Shu became a little more substantial. At least he wasn't so transparent anymore. However, it couldn't be compared to before. Ning Shu was already indifferent to the fact that his soul was sometimes strong and sometimes weak. He was very calm. Probably because of the integration of the peerless martial arts, although Ning Shu's soul was weak, the vitality it touched was much stronger than before. Fa Tian said, "It was faintly hidden before, but now with this vitality, it's clearly shaking." It was probably like a bright lighthouse in the dark night. Ning Shu shrugged and returned to the system space. Dan Qing said somewhat weakly, "A plane has collapsed. Someone needs to deal with it." Ning Shu nodded and asked, "Tian, are you going?" Fa Tian nodded. "Yes." Little Mouse on the sofa was very unhappy. "What do you mean by this? Are you isolating me?" Ning Shu, "Then are you going?" Little Mouse turned its head. Ning Shu, "Then why did I ask you?" Ning Shu and Fa Tian came to the broken plane and immediately stretched out vines to pick up the debris. Fa Tian held the bag and followed Ning Shu. Ning Shu said, "When this is over, let's go to the void to find something delicious to eat." Tian, "I want to eat meat." Ning Shu asked, "What meat?" Fa Tian looked at Ning Shu. "It's the creatures of the void." Ning Shu, "There's also a food chain in the void. I'm not asking you to find the existence at the top of the food chain. Find something like a reptile to satisfy your cravings." Ning Shu wanted to kneel. It wasn't easy to raise a child. While the two were talking, the grand uncle came over. Ning Shu was very calm. He was definitely going to ask about the vitality. Ning Shu sat down and patted the seat next to him. "Sit down. Let's talk clearly." The grand uncle hesitated for a moment and sat down next to him. Ning Shu said, "I do have that thing in my hand, but as for vitality, it's not much. It's just that a world is about to form a life plane." The grand uncle nodded. "Can you hand it over?" Ning Shu said, "Let's not talk about whether I hand it over or not. I have a few questions to ask you. First, is it useful for the Sea of Laws if I hand it over? Second, how long can it last in the Sea of Laws? Third, what are the chances of this thing being useful in the Sea of Laws?" The grand uncle narrowed his eyes, and there was a slight light refraction in his lenses. He said, "Everything is unknown." Ning Shu sighed. "Together with the unknown, I have to sacrifice the thing I cherish the most, and the thing I cherish has no value at all." This was really not convincing. Ning Shu said, "Sorry, I can't help you." Chapter 37-39. Ning Shu refused. To be honest, he was very nervous, afraid that he would suddenly snatch it. Fa Tian turned into a whip and appeared in Ning Shu's hand. The situation was on the verge of breaking out. Ning Shu held the whip and said calmly, "Since the Sea of Laws needs this kind of life force, then can the world that is about to form a living space be thrown into the Sea of Laws? Since this kind of thing was useful, then gather all the big shots in the organization who had constructed the living space and offer up their living space. Since everyone was a member of the organization, it was better to contribute to the organization and the billions of living beings in the world." Some of the leaves of her world tree had already formed a space and absorbed a lot of energy, probably forming a living space. Not to mention a leaf, when the time came, the organization could get as much as they wanted. However, when the time came, all kinds of trash would pile up in the Sea of Laws, and all kinds of world carriers would float in the Sea of Laws. They would pollute the Sea of Laws and then purify it. Ning Shu felt that the Sea of Laws was really fucking pitiful, tossing and turning. Who knew, it might even cause a short life. Now, the grand uncle and the others were experimenting with all kinds of folk remedies, and it was completely unknown whether the folk remedies would be beneficial or harmful. To be able to throw the corpses of the Little Mouse clansmen into the Sea of Laws, it could be seen how crazy they were. Maybe it was to obtain that clan's unlimited reproduction ability? In short, Ning Shu was suspicious of all kinds of folk remedies. They might prolong the time, but they might also shorten the life. The grand uncle glanced at Tian and coldly turned to leave. Ning Shu exhaled, and Fa Tian also turned into a human. Ning Shu said, "Continue picking up the fragments." Fa Tian looked a little puzzled. "Why don't we snatch it?" Ning Shu was speechless. "You're still very disappointed, right?" Ning Shu controlled the vines and said, "First, they don't know how useful this is. In fact, they know in their hearts that it's not very useful. This thing of mine is of little value, it has no meat when eaten, but it has a taste when discarded, it has a bit of life force, it might be useful for the Sea of Laws, but how much use can it have? Secondly, It's probably because of something of little value. If you take it away, you'll have to face my deep-seated hatred and resentment every day. It'll probably be very vexing. Thirdly, I actually threatened you. Since you're going to hand it over, then everyone should hand it over. It's impossible for me to be the only one to hand it over. How could those big shots who constructed the living worlds be willing to hand over their living worlds? If the organization wantonly collects the worlds of these big shots for some insignificant or even useless folk remedies, these big shots will not react at all. The impact caused will not be worth it at all. If everyone pays, I'll pay. There were some things that could not be exchanged with something of equal value. The weight and emotional needs of the item in one's heart were different. Let's all shoulder this responsibility together. There's strength in numbers. She couldn't support it, but she could still extend a hand along with the crowd. If everyone refused to hand it over, then there was no other way. If there were more people, then the responsibility would be split equally. Otherwise, if the responsibility was too big, then everyone would have to shoulder it together. Titian said, "See, it's not that difficult to refuse." Ning Shu didn't speak. She just shook her head. It wasn't that it was difficult to refuse, but that it was a matter of confidence. If she were a beginner or intermediate task taker now, Fatian was still young. She was too proud to understand people like them who were struggling in the mire. Tian said, "Oh, you've said so much. In fact, you just won't hand over this thing. You've made it so complicated." Ning Shu shook her head. "It's not complicated. Think about it carefully. Instead of doing it alone, it was better to pull everyone out. After all, they were all members of this organization. Everyone had to bear this responsibility for the billions of worlds." Titian asked, "What if this thing is useful?" Ning Shu said, "So what if it's useful? So what if it's useless? I'm not familiar with senior uncle. If there's nothing between us, I won't give it to him. The money in your pocket is useful to me, so you have to give me the money in your pocket?" Ning Shu said, "Closeness determines the degree of dedication. If you were in such a situation, I would consider giving this thing to you." Tian suddenly became shy. "Why did you suddenly say something like that? I don't know what to do." Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu continued to pick up the fragments. After that, he also dealt with the star stone and received a meager reward. Fatian didn't say anything. It was probably useless to say anything. It was unrealistic to emphasize self-respect and self-love to Ning Shu. Status was not equal. The status between the organization and the task takers was not equal. Talking about this was all empty talk. Fatian kept thinking in her mind. She looked at the other busy task takers, her eyes shining. She was led away by Ning Shu. She turned back to look at the army. The task takers turned back and left with Ning Shu. Ning Shu said, "What meat do you want to eat? Is chicken, duck, or fish okay?" Fitian said, "Do you humans eat ants? This kind of thing really doesn't taste good to me. Humans don't eat plankton. They eat the big ones like big fish." Ning Shu wanted to scratch her feet. She said, "I'll go ask what can be eaten. I'll be weaker." Fatian nodded. "Okay, why don't we call Little Mouse?" Ning Shu nodded. "Okay, call it." Back in the system space, Fatian told Little Mouse that he was going to the void to find food, meat. He found some secret recipes, some slightly spicy, some delicious sauces, and brushed them on when barbecuing. Little Mouse said coldly, "Then go." Ning Shu ignored Little Mouse's greedy look. He went to the void and asked Little Mouse, "What kind of creature has a lot of meat?" Little Mouse said, "There's a type of bird. It's very big with big wings. It has a lot of meat and should be very delicious." Ning Shu was speechless. "I'm actually a little hungry too. But this kind of bird lives in a group. It's very small for void creatures, but it's not easy for us to catch them. If there were many subordinates, it would be very easy to catch them. They weren't that strong, but there were a lot of them. Some void creatures eat this kind of bird." Ning Shu asked Arun, "Then we eat this kind of bird?" Fatian wasn't picky. "It's fine as long as there's something to eat." Ning Shu asked Little Mouse, "Does this kind of creature have intelligence?" He remembered seeing a bird that could talk. Little Mouse asked, "What does it mean to have intelligence?" "Of course it has intelligence. It's the intelligence of survival instinct." Ning Shu said, "Oh, then it's not intelligence." Intelligence generally meant having clear and logical thinking. Eating, drinking, defecating, sleeping, and reproducing by instinct wasn't intelligence. Under Little Mouse's lead, they found the place where the giant bird rested. Ning Shu took out the map and completed his void map. To view the new chapter of Zue, please go to mobile address. Chapter 3740. These birds weren't considered big in the eyes of the living beings in the void, but they were huge for Ning Shu and the others. They blotted out the sky, and a single bird could eat for a long time. There was a fish in the northern underworld called the Kuan, and the Kuan was thousands of miles long. It transformed into a bird called the Peng, and its back was thousands of miles long. When it flew in anger, its wings were like the clouds in the sky. It was really big, especially for these creatures without intelligence. They didn't know how to hide their huge bodies, so they looked very big. Just like the little mouse, any creature with a bit of intelligence would know how to shrink its body. The bigger its body, the more eye-catching it would be, and the more dangerous it would be. Ning Shu whispered, "Let's just catch one and come up with a plan." Fodder frowned. "What plan do we need? If we can't even deal with this, how can we travel in the void in the future?" Ning Shu. "Then you go." These birds lived in flocks and were big, so Fodder was annoyed. Fodder rushed into the flock of birds like a cannonball, and he didn't have any intention of blocking them. The birds were frightened, and they flapped their wings, screeched, and even used their sharp beaks to chase away the intruder. A whip materialized in Heaven Punisher's hand. The whip was very long and it lashed out with great agility. With each lash, the birds were so frightened that they scattered in all directions and fled for their lives. At this moment, they did not even think about uniting to fight against an external enemy. Their survival instincts told them to run away from the dangerous Fodder as quickly as possible. Fodder wrapped the whip around the bird closest to him. The whip wrapped around the bird's neck, and the bird screeched shrilly, flapping its wings and running forward with all its might. But the whip around its neck restrained it, and it couldn't struggle no matter how hard it tried. Ning Shu looked at the defenseless bird in Fodder's hands, and suddenly felt that there were strong and weak in the void, and there was also a food chain. Of course, it was not easy for her to deal with this bird. It was too big, and even controlling the vines to bind it was a challenge. Ning Shu extended his vines and helped wrap around the fat bird. Fodder tightened his whip and broke the bird's neck. The bird let out a final cry and its body swayed as it fell. Ning Shu and Little Rat quickly ran away to avoid being hit. It was such a big thing they couldn't bear it. His entire body convulsed as he lost his life. Ning Shu's vines wrapped around the giant bird's body. He planned to find a place to deal with the carcass and then get some pots and pans and spices. Such a large corpse definitely could not be moved into the system space. It would be too smoky. Just plucking the hair was a big project. Ning Shu said to Little Rat, "Give birth to the subordinate in your body and help me deal with the hair." The little mouse retorted, "It's not born. It's split." Ning Shu, "Oh, okay, split." Ning Shu used the law of water to directly make the water to a high temperature and then poured it on the giant bird's body. This way, it would be easy to pluck the feathers. The little mouse got the subordinate out of its body, and the few of them began to pluck the feathers. Ning Shu still had to help get the water. Such a big bird, how long would it take to pluck the feathers? It was really not easy to get a bite of food. After dealing with the feathers, he cut open the bird's stomach and took out the huge internal organs to deal with. This kind of internal organs definitely could not be eaten. After washing away the blood, he used a knife to cut the meat into small pieces. Ning Shu returned to the system space and made a big grill and all kinds of spices. As for firewood, Ning Shu ran to the Nine Palace Mountain and directly took away all their charcoal and firewood. Ning Shu thought for a moment. When it came to eating, it would be more lively with more people. Therefore, he brought the earthworm, Yao Nyang, and Han Qin to the void. Yao Nyang and Han Chen were obviously frightened. They had never been to the void before. When they looked into the distance, they could only see darkness. When Fa Tian saw these people, he did not say anything and asked them to help marinate the meat. They were busy in full swing. The barbecue grill had already been lit, and the skewered meat was being roasted on it. It was probably a creature of the void. The fragrance of the roasted meat assailed their nostrils. The oil sizzled, and when sprinkled with spices, it was very fragrant. It was so smoky and warm. There were roasted meat. Ning Shu gave a few skewers to Fa Tian. As the project leader, you're the first to eat. Tian ate the hot meat, his mouth full of oil. Ning Shu asked, "Is it delicious?" Fa Tian nodded. "Delicious, delicious." Ning Shu took a skewer and tasted it. The taste was indeed quite good. It was more chewy than ordinary meat, more fragrant, and faintly had some strength. Ning Shu felt that this strength was nothing, but for Han Chen and Yao Nyang, it was too much. Ordinary mortals couldn't stand eating dragon meat because it was too nutritious. Both of their faces were flushed red. Ning Shu said, "If you can't eat that much, don't eat too much. Wait for that piece to go back. Eat a little occasionally. It's good for your body." Yao Nyang nodded, licked the oil on her lips, and said with a smile, "Thank you, Auntie." Han Chen was stronger than Yao Nyang, so he ate a little more, but he didn't dare to eat too much. The ones who ate the most were Fa Tian and Little Mouse. As for the earthworm, he didn't eat much either. Ning Shu occasionally ate a skewer and roasted the meat in the smoke. He was very happy. He would have more such gatherings in the future. The location of the barbecue was not far from the plain. Ning Shu waved his fan and flipped the meat skewers. He saw Tai Shu and the silver-haired man together. They seemed to be about to enter the city. When the two saw Ning Shu and the others eating barbecued meat, they paused for a moment. Ning Shu greeted warmly, "Do you want to eat some?" Of course, he wouldn't eat. The silver-haired man and Tai Shu looked at each other and walked away. Ning Shu didn't take it to heart. She was just saying it casually. These two definitely wouldn't stay with them to eat skewers. TSK, they didn't know how delicious it was. Ning Shu asked Yao Nyang, "Auntie, who are those two people?" "Oh, they're my superiors." Ning Shu really didn't know how to introduce the two of them. They couldn't be considered friends. They barely had a relationship, so they were just superiors. Yao Nyang said, "Oh, they're really good-looking." Yao Nyang let out a sigh, as if she was obsessed with beauty. Han Chen touched his face. He was also good-looking. However, his aura couldn't be compared to those two people. In front of the two of them, he couldn't help but hold his breath. Ning Shu patted Yao Nyang's head. "Don't judge people by their appearance. Not only are they ugly, but they are also beautiful. Yao Nyang, beautiful people are better looking than ugly people. If you can't see the surface, you can't see the inside." Ning Shu, you have a point. The meat of the giant bird was basically in the stomachs of Fa Tian and Little Mouse. The remaining meat was for the earthworm and the others to eat. A little mouse, a mouse the size of a fist, actually ate such a big bird. It was simply terrifying. To watch the new chapter of Zue, please go to mobile address. Chapter 3741. The meat of the giant bird was very thick, so thick that it was even taller than a human. Coupled with its huge bones, the meat on it was all cleaned up. Ning Shu was a little frightened. With such an appetite, wouldn't it eat up the entire void? He told the earthworm and the others to take the remaining meat back. After eating, they didn't want to move anymore. Fei Tian and the little mouse lay down with bulging stomachs, looking as if they were in a drunken stupor. Ning Shu and Yao Nyang packed up. Ning Shu asked the earthworm, "Can you transform into a human?" The earthworm asked, "Why would I want to transform into a two-legged monster? I don't want to." The human body was frail, but it was undeniable that the human body was the most beautiful. Ning Shu said, "You're ugly." He turned to Yao Nyang and asked, "Is your uncle ugly?" Yao Nyang, Ning Shu, can't you see that beauty and ugliness are so obvious? It's the most superficial thing. Yao Nyang, of course, Yao Nyang wouldn't say that the earthworm was ugly. She had seen it since it was young, and it was no longer described as beautiful or ugly. The earthworm said, "You think I don't want to transform into a human? You're trying to transform a species into another species. That's impossible. Ning Shu, then work hard in your cultivation." The earthworm said coldly, "I don't want to become a two-legged monster." Ning Shu said, "When the time comes and you can walk on your own 2 feet, you will know that becoming a human is a wonderful thing." The law of true fragrance was happening all the time. Ning Shu packed up the meat and asked Han Chen to carry it back to the 9-Palace Mountain. After returning to the thatched cottage, Yao Nyang suddenly felt that the world was really small. It was a little uncomfortable to be cooped up in the thatched cottage every day. Ning Shu asked, "Auntie, can I go out for a walk?" Ning Shu, "Do as you see fit. If you want to go out for a walk, go ahead. Just be careful." This was their life. Ning Shu wouldn't say much. They could go wherever they wanted, eat whatever they wanted, and drink whatever they wanted. Ning Shu returned to the void. Little Mouse and Fation leisurely rubbed their stomachs. "Let's go back once we're full." The 3 of them bumped into Tai Shu and Sang Liang, who had just returned from the city. This time, there were 3 other people with them. A team of 5 people. Why did the grand uncle bring 3 people back? In any case, no matter what they did, Ning Shu would immediately contact the Sea of Laws, most probably because of the Sea of Laws. The 5 of them walked straight over. One of them turned around to look at Fation and said something to the person beside him. The other person also turned around and looked at Fation from head to toe. Fation's face was cold as he faced these people's stares. Obviously, he was very unhappy with being stared at. The 2 of them turned around and said something. Then, they pulled the person beside them to talk. Ning Shu waved to Fation and Little Mouse. "Let's follow them." Fation was very unhappy. "Follow them for what?" Ning Shu, "Of course, we have to know what they're doing." Fation said indifferently, "Why do we have to know? Why do we have to care so much?" Ning Shu, "This is not being nosy. We just have to grasp the necessary information. Information is very important. For example, if you want to eat a bird, if you don't know the bird's resting place, where can you catch a bird to eat? Some information may face changes. The one who had the information would have the world." "Oh," the Heaven Punisher replied and did not object any further. Ning Shu followed behind the 5 of them. He didn't hide his figure. Knowing that he couldn't hide, he followed behind openly. On the Sea of Laws, the members of the Ligua clan were still purifying. It had been a long time, but they were still purifying. Seeing Taiyu, Ligua stopped purifying and said to him with a face full of vicissitudes, "When will it end?" Tai Shu, "Let's go." Ligua responded with an "oh," and immediately reacted. She asked in surprise, "I can leave now?" Ning Shu looked at her coldly, but Ligua was very happy. She hurriedly said to her clansmen, "Go, go, go quickly." Then, at a fast speed, as if there was a ghost chasing after them, they disappeared in a flash. Ning Shu clicked his tongue and didn't go over. He looked at Tai Shu and the others from a distance. Ning Shu perked up his ears and couldn't hear what they were talking about. Then 2 people suddenly turned into fish. The fish weren't big, but their bodies were golden and there were red spots on them. They looked like koi. Yes, that's right. The more he looked at them, the more they looked like koi. The 2 koi jumped into the Sea of Laws and swam in the Sea of Laws. Occasionally, they would jump up and splash water. They swam really happily. They must have some use. Otherwise, they wouldn't swim in the dark Sea of Laws. Ning Shu's Little Mouse asked, "Do you know these people?" The little mouse rolled its eyes. "There are so many races in the void. I can't know all of them." It didn't want to admit its ignorance. Fation didn't say anything and frowned. Ning Shu asked, "Are you full?" Fation shook his head. "No, let's go back. There's nothing to see." Another man who didn't turn into a koi walked up to Fation and said, "You little guy, you should go and study outside." Fation didn't say anything and just looked at him. Ning Shu asked, "Where to study?" "Study in the city? Go to a fixed club to study and learn how to use your abilities." Ning Shu still wanted to ask something, but Fa Tian directly refused and said, "I'm not going and I don't want to go." Ning Shu said to the man, "Wait a minute, I have something to say to him." Ning Shu pulled Fa Tian to the side and asked, "Then, do you want to enter the city?" Fa Tian shook his head. "I don't want to." Then he tilted his head and looked at Ning Shu. "Do you want to know the way to the city? Don't you want to go all the way to the city? Let me in first." Ning Shu, "Why are you so narrow-minded? If you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten. I still want you to learn. You're wasting time by following me. Go to other places and see the powerful void creatures." Ning Shu also felt that Fa Tian didn't make any progress by following him. It was purely a waste of time. Ning Shu also felt that he and Fa Tian had differences in views. This was a difference brought about by strength, and he wouldn't be happy by following him. It would be good to let him go out and see the world. He needed to see more of the world and grow up if he followed him around in a small space. Heaven Destroyer was no longer a simple weapon. It was normal for people to gather and disperse when they left. Heaven Destroyer was no longer a weapon pinned to one's waist. Ning Shu sighed and asked, "Tan, are you going?" Fa Tian shook his head. "I don't know." Ning Shu, "I suggest you go and see. Even if you don't go to learn, you should go and see. I'm just worried that you won't be able to take care of yourself." Chapter 3742. Ning Shu felt that Fa Tian was too young. He wouldn't be able to take care of himself when he went out, and he would have to face unfamiliar people and things. He would definitely be at a loss. Ning Shu was very worried, but he also felt that Fa Tian should go and not follow her. In the organization, Ning Shu felt that he wasn't in any danger, and there weren't many times when he needed Fa Tian. Moreover, Ning Shu had spent too much time with him, and their differences were getting bigger and bigger. In the end, they didn't have any feelings for each other, and in the end, they separated in a very ugly way. Fa Tian grew much faster than him, and he should spend more time with people of the same level, and not be anxious when he saw his strength crawling like a turtle. A strong and weak relationship couldn't be maintained for long. Fa Tian had his own dignity and pride, but Ning Shu also had his own helplessness. Who didn't want to have powerful strength all of a sudden, but it wasn't realistic. If they met occasionally and had their own lives, this kind of relationship might be able to last longer. Ning Shu was a little confused and asked the man, "You guys aren't going to eat Fa Tian, are you?" Ning Shu had seen the birth of a race, and there was even a group of void creatures waiting for their meal. Some of the creatures were eaten, and some escaped, but they survived. Fa Tian was a whip. Perhaps he didn't taste good, but it didn't mean that he was safe. Moreover, the so-called cub house might be a pigsty. The man was speechless. They didn't eat everything, and they had to divide the food. Fa Tian tugged at Ning Shu's clothes and asked, "Do you really want me to go?" Ning Shu said, "It's not that I want you to go, but whether you want to go or not. If you want to go, then go. If you don't want to go, then don't go. It's up to you." Ning Shu felt that Fa Tian should go and take a look, but if Fa Tian didn't go, she wouldn't say anything. Ning Shu said, "If you go, it won't be a big problem. You can come back with a thought. If I encounter something that I can't solve, I can also summon you back with a thought. You don't have to stay by my side all the time." Tian said, "I'll think about it." Ning Shu's man asked, "Do I need to pay tuition?" He didn't know how many schools were needed for this kind of nursery, and he reckoned that he didn't have such a thing. "I can't even afford school fees. Poverty makes me ugly." The man said, "There's probably a price." Ning Shu asked, "What's the price?" The man shrugged. "I need some energy bodies." Ning Shu immediately cursed in his heart. If he had known this would happen, he would have kept a few energy bodies. Now, he didn't even have to pay for school fees. Fa Tian said, "I have some energy bodies. You gave me some before. I'm keeping them." Ning Shu heaved a sigh of relief. Previously, she had given the black energy body to Fa Tian. The matter of school fees was settled. The man knew what Ning Shu wanted to ask. He said, Just school fees aren't enough. You need an identity. We're a civilized place. It's impossible to not have an identity. The man snorted. Don't ask me for an identity. I'm not that busy. Identity and proof? Did he need a guide or a letter of introduction? Damn, there were countless creatures in the void. It was impossible to count them all. Could it be that the city needed a guide and identity? It seemed like ordinary people couldn't enter. How cold? Was it heaven on earth? And proof of identity? Ningshu really didn't know who to ask. Tian didn't care. Whether he went or not depended on his mood. He didn't have to go. He didn't care at all. If he couldn't go in, then so be it. If he could make Tian's life better, then he would fight for it. If he couldn't go, then so be it. His life was no different from before. Tian narrowed his eyes and looked at the man who came over to talk to him. This person came over to say these things for no reason and disturbed his mood. This old man was very bad. He had a mischievous intention. He saw that he was following a weak human, so he said these things to watch a good show. Tian saw the interest in the man's eyes, especially when he saw that Ningshu was a little annoyed. He smiled even more. He was crazy, coming over to tease him for no reason. Ningshu knew in his heart that this person was probably really bored. In addition, Tian was indeed a creature of the void. Moreover, this person's focus was on Tian from beginning to end. He didn't pay much attention to Little Mouse at the side. Obviously, there was also an invisible chain of contempt in the void. At least in this man's heart, Little Mouse wasn't worth paying attention to at all. At the same time, it also showed Tian's growth potential and talent. This made Ningshu happy and a little disappointed. She was afraid that in the future, Tian's growth speed would be faster than her. There was actually a hidden danger in their relationship. It was a hidden danger brought about by their strength. Tian pulled Ningshu's hand and said, I'm a little full from eating. Let's go back. Ningshu nodded. Okay. He held Tian's hand and turned to leave. It didn't matter if you came to laugh or to faintly instigate discord. I'm ignoring you. The man froze for a moment. Obviously, he didn't expect them to leave so quickly. He said, wait. Ningshu and Tian turned back and looked at him expressionlessly. Being stared at by such an adult and a child, the man coughed and said, actually, things like identity can be obtained from the Taishu and the rest. Ningshu said, oh, thank you. Asking the village chief for a way out? It felt so backward. The void was too big. Every race was content to stay in a corner. Everyone pursued their own strength and didn't use external objects like humans. The place was too big and not easy to build. Once it was developed like in the plane and technology developed, the void might not be able to withstand such demands. It was better to keep it as it was. Moreover, the lifespan of the void creatures was too long. They didn't need various methods to extend their lives. They were strong themselves and didn't need to research various tools and weapons. The entire void gave people a feeling of heaviness and simplicity, as if it had existed since ancient times. It was so backward. Thinking about it carefully, it was normal. Ningshu felt that perhaps many of the creatures in the void didn't even know there was such a place. Asking the Taishu for a way out? Ningshu really couldn't bring himself to ask for a way out. Ningshu glanced at the Sea of Law and asked, what are you guys doing? The man said, guess. Ningshu said, taking a bath. Was the Sea of Law a bathhouse? Ningshu didn't intend to say anything more to him. After saying goodbye, he took Tian and left. Back in the system space, Ningshu asked Tian if he wanted to go to the city. Tian asked, but the identity certificate isn't good. You don't really want to take it from your organization. They definitely won't give it to you for free. If you take out that peerless martial art in exchange, will you do it? Tian looked at Ningshu. What if it's this condition? Chapter 3743. Tian's question was very realistic. The organization would not give her this for no reason. Why do I feel like you want to chase me away? Tian tilted her head and looked at Ningshu suspiciously. Ningshu, why do you have such suspicions? It's just that there's a better opportunity and I want to fight for it. If I really can't get it, then forget it. I'll ask the system. If I can buy the travel pass, then it's a good thing. If I can't, then forget it. Fation looked at Ning Shu's busy appearance, as if he was packing up his clothes, as if he could leave in the next second. Fation asked again, then how are we going to get to the city? We don't even know the way? So what if we have the travel pass? It's useless if we can't find the place. Ning Shu, don't keep pouring cold water on me. There will be a way when the car reaches the mountain. The boat will naturally cross the bridge when the boat reaches the bridgehead. Once you get the travel pass, let someone give you a ride. Didn't the three-headed fish come to the Sea of Law? Are they going to stay in the Sea of Law and not go back? Obviously, they are all city dwellers. Of course you have to pay the fare. It's a small matter that can be solved with money. Not having money was a big matter. Could it be that living in the city required a lot of energy bodies? Fation replied with an oh. Her mood was not high. Ning Shu saw the situation and asked, do you want to go? If you don't want to go, I won't bother with it. She wanted to prevent herself from busying herself and not being able to gain anything in the end, thinking that she was doing it for the other party's good, but in the end, the other party did not feel it at all and instead developed hostility. It was better to ask clearly. Fation said, going to the city is fine, staying is also fine. To me, there's no difference. You don't have to worry so much. Of course I know you're planning for me. Ning Shu said, then I'll take care of it? Fation nodded, okay. As she spoke, she helped to pack up the clothes. These clothes were given by Wan. The colors were quite nice and the workmanship was even better. After packing up, Ning Shu brought Fation to the consultation room and waited for the silver-haired man to come over. The silver-haired man should be beside the Sea of Law, waiting patiently. After a while, the silver-haired man came out of the room. He opened the curtain with one hand and held a book with the other. After sitting down, Ning Shu asked, what do you want from the consultation room? Ning Shu said to the silver-haired man, I want to send Fation to the city. I need a travel permit. How can I get one from the organization? The silver-haired man raised his eyebrows. Ning Shu said, I want to send him to the cub nursery so that he can learn something. Even if he couldn't learn anything, it would be good to have some experience. Fation should indeed interact with existences of the same level, and not be together with her to discuss some differences and disputes brought about by the difference in strength. The silver-haired man glanced at Fation but didn't say anything. Ning Shu asked, how can I buy a travel permit? The silver-haired man said, 50 million merit points and free processing of the star stone fragments for 300 years. This kind of thing can't be given to people casually. Consider it a benefit from the organization, lest you always feel wronged and the organization mistreats you. If he causes any trouble outside, everyone will be implicated, understand? When Fation heard this condition, he pulled Ning Shu and shook his head gently at Ning Shu. Ning Shu nodded. Then that's it. I'll give you the 50 million merit points now. The silver-haired man said, after a while, this thing will be in your hands. Ning Shu gave the money, thanked him, and left with Fation. The matter of the travel permit was settled, so the next problem was to go to the city. After leaving the consultation room, Fation said, I don't think this exchange is worth it. 500 years. In other words, within 500 years, Ning Shu couldn't leave the organization, and he had to do things for free. There was still 50 million merit points. Ning Shu just said, we're the ones asking for help. This can't be helped. We're the ones who need the travel permit. As for those who took advantage of others' difficulties and offered themselves to them, they could only sigh. Fation said, have you ever thought that the travel permit might be worthless? Ning Shu patted Fation's head. Whether it's worth that much or not, it's not up to us. They can't do anything about it if they don't sell it to us. The value depends on who needs it. This was a deal. Moreover, there was no Bureau of Commodity Prices to determine how much something was worth. Okay, let's go back and pack up. Then we can set off depending on the situation. When you get there, if you encounter any problems, you have to stay calm. If you encounter any danger, you have to come back to me immediately. Do you understand? Ning Shu asked, How many energy bodies do you have around you? He had originally given a portion of the energy bodies to Fation as snacks, but he didn't know how much he had eaten and how much was left. Tion said, I gave you 2 pieces and kept the rest. It should be enough for the tuition. Don't worry. Ning Shu could only say, it's good that you know. When you're outside, you can only take care of yourself. Fation listened to Ning Shu's chatter without interrupting or saying anything. He listened silently and didn't express any opinions. Back in the system space, Little Mouse saw the expressions on their faces. Seeing that Ning Shu was happy and Fation didn't feel much, it asked, is Fation going to the Holy Land? Ning Shu said, that place is called the Holy Land. Too tacky. They just like to call it the Holy Land. Ning Shu nodded. Yes, we can go. Now we just have to see how to get to the Holy Land. When Ning Shu heard the words Holy Land, he said to Fation, I think the rules of the Holy Land must be very big. Before you get familiar with the land, you have to keep a low profile. Little Mouse rolled its eyes. Even if you get familiar with the land, you should keep a low profile. Little Mouse's bean-sized eyes were filled with envy. Obviously, Little Mouse also wanted to go to the Holy Land, but with his status, he couldn't go to the scenic spots. He was like a locust rat. Ning Shu said, do you want to catch another bird and make it into jerky and put it in the messen space? You can take it out and chew it every time. Fation's eyes lit up and he nodded. Okay, I want it slightly spicy. The group went to look for birds again. On the way, Little Mouse said to Fun, do you want to bring me along when you go to the Holy Land? Ning Shu turned around and looked at Little Mouse. He said bluntly, I don't trust you. He didn't want to give Fation to Little Mouse at all. Little Mouse wanted to sneak into the Holy Land. Whether it was purely to worship the Holy Land or for other purposes, following Fation would definitely implicate Fation. In Ning Shu's heart, there was no doubt that Fation was more important. Little Mouse's body was fluffy. I can be a pet. As a pet, it didn't need a guide. It belonged to its master. Ning Shu laughed. You don't want Li Wen anymore. If you leave, you won't be able to see Li Wen anymore. Chapter 3744. Looking at the Little Mouse's excited expression, it really wanted to follow. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. Previously, the Little Mouse had been talking about Li Wen all day. Now that it had found Li Wen, it no longer spent time with Li Wen. Instead, it stayed in the system space and slept. Little Rat, do you still remember your original intention? You wanted to find Li Wen and be intimate with her. Do you still remember your original intention? Little Mouse said, what does going to the Holy Land have to do with Li Wen? Do you have to choose between the two? Ning Shu was too lazy to talk to Little Mouse. Little Mouse turned around and bowed to Fation, asking him to take it. If Fation could take it, Ning Shu would be useless no matter how much he talked. Ning Shu would not say anything. If Fation was willing to take Little Mouse, then so be it. If not, it depended on his mood. In short, it all depended on Fation's mood. Little Mouse had some strength and might be able to help Fation. However, if the two of them were not of one mind, then they would be a burden to each other when they reached the Holy Land. Fion thought for a moment and said, you can follow me. Little Mouse immediately thanked Fion happily and rolled around on the sofa. It asked, when are we leaving? Ning Shu said that he wanted to catch a bird and get some snacks. Little Mouse was very eager to help and went to catch a bird in the void. Ning Shu felt like an old mother who was going to leave her child. He felt that everything could be used by the child and wanted to give everything to Fation. Fation said, I don't know how long we can stay. There's no need to prepare too much. Don't be impatient. Impatient? I'm not impatient. How can I be impatient? How can you say that? Ning Shu retorted. Fation tactfully shut his mouth and watched as Ning Shu prepared. Soon, the Little Mouse dragged a bird back. The Little Mouse was holding a huge bird with both hands. No one could see where it was. He saw a dead bird, but it was moving slowly. The next step was to prepare the meat. He cut the meat into small strips, cooked it, and then dried it. He sprinkled various spices on it and stirred it. Fation wanted it to be slightly spicy. He didn't know how long it would take to deal with such a big bird. There was so much meat that it took up 2 meson spaces. Moreover, it had to be packaged separately in small bags. Vacuum packaging would allow the food to be stored for a longer time. Ningshu said, "When we reach the cub nursery, we can take out something to share." Sharing snacks was the fastest way to build a friendship. "Oh," Fation replied. Ningshu looked up at the sky and sighed. He was really like a long-winded and annoying old woman. Dan Qing informed Ningshu and said, "The main system asked you to find Taishu to get your identity card. He said he has it." Ningshu replied and put 2 meson spaces into the necklace on Fation's neck. There were already 4 meson spaces in the necklace. Then, he put the necklace into his clothes and patted it. Ningshu said, "These are all the things you need. Don't lose them." Ningshu shut up. From now on, he wouldn't be long-winded about anything. Ningshu went to the Sea of Law to find Taishu to get his identity card and find someone to take Fation to the sacred land. There were 3 koi fish swimming in the Sea of Law. Although he didn't know why, it was probably for the Sea of Law. What was the use of finding 3 fish to swim in? Was it for purification or something else? Taishu stood beside the Sea of Law. His body was motionless. Occasionally, the corner of his windbreaker would flutter slightly like a stone. Ningshu led Fation over and said to Taishu, "Judge, the main system asked me to come over and get something." Taishu's somewhat out-of-focus eyes gradually came back to his senses. He looked at Ningshu and took out a wooden object from the pocket of his windbreaker. This object was very rough. Even the surface was uneven. It wasn't exquisite at all, but it gave people a simple and obscure feeling. One could even ignore the rough appearance. This was probably the temperament. Ningshu smiled and reached out his hand. Taishu casually put the object in Ningshu's hand, and his fingertips accidentally touched her palm. Ningshu's face immediately changed. He hurriedly shook his hand. The sharp pain made Ningshu feel as if he had experienced the pain of an axe splitting his soul. The wooden sign was also thrown far away. Fation immediately looked at Ningshu and asked, "What's wrong with you?" Ningshu was still shaking his hand. "I don't know. It hurts." Little Mouse immediately went to pick up the wooden sign. It wouldn't be good if the wooden sign was lost. The wooden sign was very important. Taishu frowned. Then, black lines spread out from his neck. His face was covered with lines, and there was a black fog rising from his body. His whole body was shrouded in the black fog. One could only vaguely see a human figure. The black fog seemed to have consciousness. Or perhaps it was unconsciously flying towards Ningshu and attacking Ningshu. Ningshu pulled Fation and ran quickly. Although he didn't know what the black fog was, it wouldn't be good if he got involved. Ningshu ran very fast. The black fog gathered into a dense black object and flew towards Ningshu with a swoosh. "Fation," Ningshu shouted. Fation immediately turned into a black whip and appeared in her hand. Ningshu waved her whip and split the black fog into 2 halves. However, even though it was split into 2 halves, it quickly gathered together again. It was completely useless. Ningshu fled quickly. He glanced at Taishu from the corner of his eyes. Taishu was still a black man shrouded in black fog. He was motionless, and black fog constantly floated out from his body. The black fog gathered and grew bigger and bigger, constantly absorbing the black fog from Taishu's body. What the hell was this? Ningshu was horrified. What the hell was this? It was full of dense death and turbid air. There was also an evil aura in it. "Oh my God, run!" Ningshu's arm was numb. He couldn't feel the existence of his arm. It seemed that his arm had been swallowed by something and no longer existed. If it continued to spread, it might spread to half of his body and then his entire soul. Therefore, Ningshu made a prompt decision to cut off his arm. At most, he would lose some of his soul power. Of course, this invisible force would spread to his entire soul, and he wouldn't be able to withstand it. The severed arm was instantly annihilated and no longer existed. It only exploded with a slight bang. There was a faint light, and then it disappeared. Without the soul power of an arm, Ning Shu's soul was much weaker. Previously, he had used a lot of his soul power to fuse with the peerless martial art. Tai Shu, who was surrounded by black fog, was still motionless. The black fog kept chasing after Ning Shu. It seemed that it wanted to eat Ning Shu. It followed him like a shadow. Even though there was a distance between them, Ning Shu felt a huge sense of oppression. Ning Shu was angry from being chased. He grabbed Fation and used the will of death. With a bang, the black fog was split into two halves. To view the new chapter of Zue, please go to mobile address. Chapter 3745. This time, the black fog failed to fuse together. There was a gap in the middle, preventing the two masses of black fog from fusing together. Seeing that it was effective, Ning Shu waved the whip several times in a row, splitting the black fog into several smaller masses of black fog. The power was not as strong as before. If Ning Shu continued to wave her whip, she might be able to disperse the black fog. Suddenly, the black fog seemed to be sucked in by some kind of suction force. It kept retreating, like oil and smoke being sucked away by a range hood. The black fog was absorbed back into the Grand Elder's body. The black fog struggled. Ning Shu could feel the unwillingness of the black fog. It let out a silent roar and was unwillingly absorbed into the Grand Elder's body. Ning Shu was speechless. This body really can take in hundreds of rivers into the sea. It can get all kinds of messy things into my body. Fation saw that the matter was resolved and turned back into a child. As for the little mouse, it had been holding the wooden sign. It stood on Ning Shu's shoulder, holding the wooden sign tightly. Ning Shu moved over and asked the Grand Elder, "What is that?" The two were at least 2 meters apart. Ning Shu didn't dare to get close to him. The Grand Elder didn't say anything, but his body swayed and fell down with a plop. Ning Shu patted his chest. Fortunately, he was standing far away. Otherwise, he would have been hit. As soon as Ning Shu came into contact with the Grand Elder, he didn't know if the black fog would stick to him like maggots. How delicate. Ning Shu saw the Grand Elder faint and was tempted. Fation tilted his head. Ning Shu asked, "Do you want to whip him?" Ning Shu showed a big smile. Why not? He obviously can't suppress the violent black fog in his body. I'm a soft-hearted person, so I'll help him suppress it. I'm being kind this time, so I won't absorb his power. Is Fation ready? Ning Shu asked. She could roughly guess that the power in the Grand Uncle's body was fighting. If she absorbed the Grand Uncle's power, the black fog might run out again, and she would be the one to suffer. The Fation turned into a whip. Ning Shu swung the whip, and it hit the Grand Elder's body with a snap. The Grand Elder's body remained motionless. Slap, 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 slap. The sound of the whip was loud and clear. Ning Shu's expression was indifferent as he whipped the Grand Elder. The tail of the whip swept across the Grand Elder's cheek, leaving a bloody mark on his pale face. When the silver-haired man rushed over, Ning Shu stopped. The silver-haired man looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu said, "There seems to be that black fog in his body. He couldn't suppress it. I used the will of death to help suppress it. There's no need to thank me." The silver-haired man helped the Grand Elder up and wiped the blood on the Grand Elder's face with his hand. He asked faintly, "Why did you use a whip?" Ning Shu asked, "If I don't use a whip, what should I do? Touch him directly? If I touch him, the black fog in his body will run out again. I'm afraid it'll be even worse for him." Previously, he had only touched the Grand Elder slightly. Perhaps he hadn't even touched the Grand Elder's skin, but the black fog had already broken out of his body. Besides, ordinary weapons can't carry the will of death. I'm doing this for the Grand Elder's good. This is a necessary means to achieve my goal, Ning Shu said, looking at the silver-haired man. Ning Shu glanced at the unconscious Grand Elder and said, "Let's take him back and rescue him. Maybe he can be saved." The silver-haired man was speechless. The silver-haired man carried the Grand Elder away. Ning Shu touched Fation, who was in the form of a whip. "It's a pity that I didn't absorb any power this time." Fation turned into his human form and said doubtfully, "When you whipped him just now, I didn't feel the will of death on me. Ning Shu said, I didn't use it. Fa Tian said, then you said you used the will of death to help suppress it? I've already dispersed the black fog before, and the power of the black fog dissipated a lot. That's for sure. They can't deny that I used the will of death to help suppress it. Fa Tian looked at Ning Shu for a while. Ning Shu touched his face and asked, is my face messed up? Fa Tian shook his head. As long as you're happy. In fact, it's meaningless to make such a small fuss. If you have the ability, just kill him directly. Ning Shu spread his hands and said, it's because I don't have the ability that I'm making such a small fuss. If you have the ability, why are you still standing here? It's good that you can vent your anger. Tian said, sometimes, I really feel that you're pitiful and infuriating. Even at such a time, you still have to find a way out before you dare to make a move, so that others can't find trouble with you. Ning Shu said, of course, we have to be righteous. We have to be in the right. Ning Shu deeply felt that Fa Tian should really spend more time with existences of the same level, so that he could understand some things. Clearly, Heaven Punisher saw her and the organization as equals. Was she on equal footing with the organization? Obviously not. Fa Tian sighed and said, I didn't let go before, but now that something like this has happened, I'm relieved. Ning Shu understood after thinking for a while and said, you think that my will of death can suppress the black fog, so the organization might not want to kill me for the time being. I'm safer? Fa Tian nodded. Ning Shu smiled and did not say anything. Fa Tian was still a little naive. The organization could take his life at any time. Even if the will of death could really suppress that thing, if the carrier of the will of death was not obedient, it would erase a consciousness and give birth to a new body. Wouldn't that be better? Last time, his consciousness was almost erased. Of course, Ning Shu would not tell Fa Tian this. There was no need to let Fa Tian know this, so that he would not be worried when he left. Little Mouse asked, we've got the identity token, when are we leaving? It was eager to go and could not wait to go to the sacred land. Tian said, let's wait a little longer. Ning Shu said, I haven't found anyone who can go to the sacred land with me. I don't know where the sacred land is and how to get there. Ning Shu squatted beside the Sea of Law and shouted to the koi inside, brother, I'll treat you to something to eat. 3 koi jumped out of the Sea of Law and jumped to the shore. Fa Tian reluctantly took out 3 bags of jerky from the mess in space and handed them to the 3 people. The 3 people's expressions were somewhat disgusted. What is this? If you don't want to eat, forget it. Fa Tian wanted to put away the jerky, but the 3 people wanted to take advantage of it. They took the jerky, tore it open, and tasted it. Their eyes lit up, and they took out another piece of jerky to eat. The 3 people sat down and asked while eating, why are you looking for us? Ning Shu said, I want to ask you to help bring Fa Tian to the sacred land when you leave. Do you have proof of identity? Ning Shu nodded. He snatched the wooden token from Little Mouse's hand and handed it over. Little Mouse. To view the new chapter of Zue, please go to mobile address. Chapter 3746. The 3 koi fish ate the slightly spicy jerky and did not take the wooden token. They said, since you have proof of identity, you can go to the sacred land with a map. The sacred land is a floating place. You can only find this place with proof of identity. Ning Shu was happy that the proof of identity had a map, but when she heard that the sacred land was a moving thing, her heart turned cold. She wanted to remember the route of the proof of identity. Maybe she would know the location of the sacred land. If it was moving, it meant that the map was a one-time thing, and following this route, she would not be able to find the sacred land. Forget it, she could not enter the sacred land for the time being, but with proof of identity, she knew the location of the sacred land, so she did not need to worry. Ning Shu thanked them. Seeing that the 3 of them were about to finish the bag of jerky, she planned to give them another bag each. Fa Tian had a lot of jerky anyway. Fa Tian was very reluctant. Giving out 6 bags meant that he had to eat 6 less bags, a total of 6 bags. Ning Shu took the jerky from Fa Tian's hand. Fa Tian held the bag tightly. The two of them pulled twice before Fation let go of the bag expressionlessly. Little Mouse held the wooden token tightly, as if it was holding onto the hope of its life. The three of them quickly took the jerky and said, "Although the taste is average, it can fill your mouth." The three of them kept the jerky, turned into koi fish and jumped into the sea of law. Ning Shu still did not have the chance to ask what they were doing. Little Mouse said, "Since this wooden token can lead us to the sacred land, should we set off now?" Ning Shu, "Then let's set off, sooner rather than later." Hyun, "So early?" Ning Shu, "We have to go anyway, let's go early." Ning Shu grabbed the wooden token in Little Mouse's hand and looked at it. "Where is the map?" Little Mouse, it grabbed the wooden token. "Maybe it's not a specific map, but a direction. Let's go." The group walked in a random direction, but the wooden sign didn't react at all. Was it because they were walking in the right direction? If it was wrong, it would probably remind him. Ning Shu and Fation could only suppress the doubts in their hearts. Moreover, Ning Shu was still recording the route they had just taken. After sending Fation to the Holy Land, she had to come back, right? If she didn't know the route, how was she going to go back? Along the way, they had to be careful to avoid encountering any powerful void creatures. Fation thought about it and said to Ning Shu, "You don't have to send me. I can find the place myself." "It's all right. I have to send you to the entrance of the Holy Land. Otherwise, I'll be worried too." If she was swallowed by something, she would still be waiting for Fation at home. That would be even more tragic. Seeing Fation enter the Holy Land, Ning Shu felt relieved. Fation said, "If the Holy Land is very far away from us, it will be more dangerous for you to come back." Ning Shu smiled and said, "Don't worry about that. Maybe I'm not very powerful and am weaker than the void creatures, but my ability to escape is not weak. Don't worry about that. But if one cherished one's life, one would be stupid to fight the void creatures head-on." Fation was speechless. Little Mouse grabbed the wooden token and knocked it with its claws. There was no reaction. After walking so far, there was no reaction at all. It couldn't help but ask, "Do you think this thing has lost its effect? It's completely useless." Ning Shu hesitated for a moment. "It shouldn't be. I bought this thing with real money. If they gave her a fake one, she would definitely make a fuss. Besides, the silver-haired man and the grand uncle didn't need to give her a fake one. If they didn't want Fation to go to the Holy Land, they could just refuse and not sell this wooden token. Why would they need to go through so much trouble?" Little Mouse kept knocking with its claws, hoping that this thing would give some reaction. But there was no reaction at all. It was a little strange. Ning Shu said, "If you break it, will you pay for it?" Little Mouse held the wooden token like it was holding a compass, hoping that the needle would move. Ning Shu felt that this direction was probably right, so the wooden token didn't have any reaction. Or maybe it had a reaction and they had ignored it. Ning Shu snatched the wooden token from Little Mouse's hand and looked at it over and over. Little Mouse was speechless. Ning Shu said, "If there are no instructions, then let's keep walking." They kept walking forward in a straight line. Suddenly, the wooden token flickered. Little Mouse said, "The wooden token is hot. It seems that there are instructions." Ning Shu said, "Then let's change directions." After changing directions several times, the wooden token stopped warning. They followed the direction indicated by the wooden token. Little Mouse said, "Just give us an accurate map. Why do we have to test it one direction at a time?" Fation said, "This thing can probably sense the location of the Holy Land. How can it give you an accurate map?" Ning Shu was a little numb to trying to remember directions with the wooden token in hand. He was a little worried that he wouldn't be able to find the way back. Ning Shu thought that the Holy Land was a very magnificent and sacred place, but he was wrong. The Holy Land looked like a mirage. The scenery inside was simple and unadorned stone houses. There were people coming and going on the streets. The streets didn't look very wide either. Without the wooden token, this was just a mirage. But with the wooden token, they could enter. Little Mouse looked at the quaint streets and the primitive stone houses, dumbfounded. This was the Holy Land? There definitely wasn't a soft and elastic sofa. Although it reflected a strong and simple aura, it was too backward. Fa Tian's expression was also a little disdainful. He said directly, "Let's go back." Ning Shu said, "Don't. We're already at the door. Why don't you go in and take a look? Maybe what you see now isn't real." Technology couldn't be developed in the void. Everything was in its original state. This kind of stone house or wooden house was not impossible. Ning Shu felt that these stones and wood contained powerful energy. They were obviously not ordinary. Ning Shu pushed it on and said, "Let's go in. If we go in later, the location of the Holy Land will change. The map I recorded before will be wrong." In short, she might not be able to find the way back. While she was hesitating, the direction of the Holy Land changed from the front to the right. Fa Tian stuffed little mouse into the meson space. The little mouse didn't even have time to say a word. Fa Tian was also worried. If the Holy Land excluded the little mouse and put it in the meson space, it would be his possession. With proof of identity, the Holy Land wouldn't stop him. Fa Tian glanced at Ning Shu and stepped into the mirage with the wooden token. Ripples appeared, and half of Fa Tian's body seemed to be immersed in water. To view the new chapter of Zue, please go to mobile address. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.